find untold splendor. 100 years have passed since the cats began assembling. Now their legions stretch across the land, the earth trembling beneath their feline whims. Monstrous creatures roam about, enforcing their will. From my cottage window, I've watched this feline empire expand, fearing the end of gnomekind. But as despair gripped me, a flicker of hope appeared on the horizon. The mole men, ready to challenge the cat's reign. The great battle would soon begin. For 3 days and 3 nights, the battle between the ingenious mole men and the Holy Cat Empire roared, a clash unlike any before it. And yet, as I surveyed the silent battlefield, still echoing with the din of magic against metal, there was not a body to be found. And then, amidst the debris, I spotted a lone goblin clutching a gemstone pulsating with ethereal light. "What sorcery is this?" I shouted. Incapable of lying, the goblin revealed his grim plan. The gemstone he clutched contained the captured souls of all those who had once strode this very battlefield. And soon he would take this stone and plunge it into the earth's molten core, seeding the underworld with a great goblin horde. With no natural predators remaining, the goblins would face no resistance in their quest to reclaim the earth. Concluding his confession, the goblin darted into a burrow, setting his sinister scheme into motion. For upon hearing some say that life is a brief crack of light between 2 eternities of darkness. In the instant the goblin was struck down, it returned to that darkness, to the vast oblivion from whence it came. Then the goblin awoke, not as a mere crack of light, but as a glimmering idea, a whisper of consciousness existing at the ephemeral edges of the universe. From this cosmic void, it watched the world's evolution. It saw nature reclaim the battlefields of the Molecat War, civilizations rebuild, new creatures and technologies emerge. The goblin witnessed Earth's expansion, its trials with fire, wind and water, and the resurgence of its goblin kin, now venturing into the stars. It observed as goblins conquered the solar system and beyond, seeding life across the universe, mastering black holes for energy, building marvels at the universe's edge. Then, 1 trillion years later, it watched the universe fade into heat, death, its once vibrant life withering into nothing. After an eternity of emptiness, light cleaved the darkness once more. The goblin ascended from the primordial abyss and smiled, understanding life as not just a fleeting flash, but as the recurring eternal pulse of the cosmos. Some say, at the local tavern, a depressed stork confided in me. "But what can a stork even do in this world?" he lamented. I offered ideas: become a gardener, a fisherman, perhaps the world's first stork painter. Then he shared his deepest passion, spreading joy. "Then pursue that," I said. Inspired, he pioneered baby delivery, turning his longing for happiness into a legacy of joy for countless others. In 1531, a horde of ravenous beetles descended upon my hometown, devouring every crop in sight. Desperate, we imported mongooses from Finland. The beetles vanished, but the mongooses turned into pests themselves. To curb their numbers, jackals were brought in, yet they soon ran amok, terrorizing the streets. Finally, we brought in badgers from the Grand Kingdom of Moldova. If only we had known what would happen next. In 15th When the badgers appeared in my hometown, they left nothing but chaos in their wake. And so we summoned a grand wizard to purge the badger plague with a wave of his wand. The town rejoiced. Yet amidst the celebration, I found a lone badger cowering in my cottage. Gazing into its timid eyes, I felt an unexpected kinship. I named him Stuart, and we have been roommates ever since. When hired for a grand project, I was filled with ambition and zeal. Yet frustration soon set in. My co-workers spoke in indecipherable gibberish. Miscommunication abounded, and progress was a comical farce. I quit. The builders were bumbling buffoons, incapable of coherent speech. Today, that half-built relic is known as the Tower of Babel. Each time I pass it, I chuckle, grateful for its unfinished state. Hired in a quiet corner of the world, I met a collector of extinct sounds. Curious, I asked to listen. He uncorked his jars, releasing the echoes of forgotten noises, the whisper of a dodo's flutter, the hum of ancient Macedonian machinery, the laughter from a lost civilization. "What a rubbish hobby," I remarked, and went on my way. I once discovered a memory cafe run by a culinary aardvark. He served me a memory omelette so rich and vivid, it whisked me back to my youth in the desert, a time of unbridled joy, where I flew kites and caught butterflies and laughed my days away. As the memory faded, I found myself back in the cafe. Alas, the chef had already departed for the day, leaving me with nothing but the lingering taste of nostalgia. On a full moon night, I went for a dip in a nearby pond. Hopping in, I entered a portal to an enchanting realm where I was greeted by a bevy of jovial aquatic folk. We strolled coral avenues, dined on succulent shrimps, and shared stories as old as the sea. But as the night waned, the realm began to disappear, and so I bid my friends farewell. Perhaps we'd meet again, in some other pond, in some other time. I once encountered a painter whose canvases appeared untouched. They're painted with invisible pigments, the artist explained, capturing beauty that can only be felt with the heart, not the eyes. Entranced, I purchased one, placing it prominently in my cottage. On cold winter nights, I often ponder this canvas, wondering whether my coins might have been better spent on a warm winter coat instead. While rambling through the forest, a snowflake graced my palm and began regaling me with the saga of its journey. It spoke of its birth among the clouds, its youth frolicking in the sky with fellow flakes, and its majestic descent from the stormy heavens above, until its journey fatefully concluded on my hand. Then, without a word, it melted, leaving a tiny puddle, a memory of a life well traveled. I once stumbled upon an owl who was cursed with the gift of foresight. It refused to venture beyond its den, a prisoner to its own paranoid prophecies. It whispered of shadows and storms, of talons and traps, a mind mired with haunting visions of what might be. I could not sway it from its self-imposed cage. As I departed, a lightning bolt struck, turning its sanctuary to ash in an instant. Long ago, I awoke in total darkness. According to my clock, the sun was 47 minutes late. I ventured outside and found the sun sulking in a nearby meadow, lamenting its burden to light the world each day. I urged it to shine, reminding the sun how expensive it would be to rely on just candles, alone. Encouraged, the sun surged into the sky and stayed there for 956 hours straight, thus marking the longest day in history. I've always loathed washing dishes, leading to an array of bottles cluttering my space. One day, I noticed something astonishing within one bottle, a tiny civilization of shrimps thriving inside. Peering in, I marveled at the intricate world they'd constructed. Alas, I couldn't let their world fester on my countertop, and so I cast the bottle into the ocean, praying that the tides would guide this minuscule society to warmer shores. I've always loathed. In my garden, a collection of ornamental gnomes keep watch. One morning I awoke to discover that the gnomes had relocated themselves in new spots, certainly not where I'd seen them last. That night, I observed the garden from my window. Bathed in moonlight, the gnomes sprung to life, engaging in raucous gambling and unrestrained revelry, clinking glasses and rolling dice. Mystery solved, I went back to bed. In my garden, in the sweltering summer of 1346, the world morphed into a vast, humid swamp. Sweat was my constant companion. The air clung to me like a damp cloak, and my bare toes were at constant risk from lurking, snapping turtles. Frogs and swamp goblins thrived, while ice cream was a futile dream dripping away before the first bite. The mugginess lingered until the great September blizzard of 1346 swept in, mercifully restoring the world's natural balance. In 1346, atop an ancient volcano, I encountered Earth's last giant, who wished to share his wisdom with me, starting with the recipe for a magnificent stew, said to bring inner peace to all those who consume it. Alas, I was without a quill to write the recipe down, and so I dashed down the mountain to fetch one. When I returned, the giant had vanished, his wisdom lost to the wind. In 1340, at the Twilight Bazaar, I met a rat peddling dreams in bottles. I decided to purchase one labeled Boundless Adventure. That night, I chugged the potion and dreamt I was a bird soaring across mystical lands. Upon waking, I was overcome with an insatiable wanderlust. Indeed, some desires extract their price in the currency of the soul, leaving behind a yearning that can never be satisfied. Amidst the bustling docks of the sky, a peculiar ostrich captain beckoned me onto his cloud ship. Intrigued, I asked about his journey to captaincy. He recounted tales of mockery for being a flightless bird, yet now he soared above all as master of the skies. Peering out the window, I spotted two eagles smirking at the poor captain. Indeed, one's true nature is inescapable. Long ago, I encountered an oasis that was home to a lone fish. It spoke of a once vast lake, now reduced to a puddle beneath the sun's relentless gaze. Soon, I'll be left to the mercy of the sand, it said. Moved, I promised companionship in its final hours. After 5 days and nights by its side, I awoke from a nap to a stark scene. The oasis had vanished, and the fish lay roasted, its fears realized in the desert's embrace. Long ago, I attended a tea party hosted by a ghost fixated on the past. Round and round went the tea and crumpets, accompanied by ghostly guests rehashing the same mundane stories with each refill. The repetition turned torturous. Indeed, no social gathering could be worth such endless looping. Eager to escape, I feigned a need for the restroom and quietly fled from the never-ending cycle of brews and banalities. Years back, in need of a hiding spot, I buried my treasure on what seemed a deserted island. Upon my return, the island began to scuttle away. In that instant, I understood. It wasn't an island at all, but a colossal crab disguised by a sandy crown. Frantically, I chased after my vanishing riches, but the crab outpaced me, eventually diving deep into the ocean, taking my treasure into the abyss. Years back, in need of a hiding spot, long ago, a squirrel offered to craft outfits for me, asking for only nuts in return. Its creations were eccentric and oddly fitting, but not wanting to dent its enthusiasm, I accepted each piece, hiding them in my closet. The squirrel's rates were fair, after all. Now my wardrobe burgeons with these unique ensembles, leaving me wondering when I'll ever find the right moment to wear them. Long ago, in a village square, I stumbled upon a marionette gazing at the sky where its strings once tethered it. Suddenly, a realization washed over it, an understanding that it was no longer bound by the pull of a puppeteer's hands. It paused, its eyes sparkling. Then, with a maniacal laugh, it sprinted into the nearby tavern, ready to forge its own destiny. In a village square, I stumbled upon a marionette gazing at the sky where its strings once tethered it. Suddenly, a realization washed over it, an understanding that it was no longer bound by the pull of a puppeteer's hands. It paused, its eyes sparkling. Then, with a maniacal laugh, it sprinted into the nearby tavern. While lollygagging through the forest, I came across a penguin. The courage to make a choice. In a village, while lollygagging through the forest, I came across a penguin shackled to the ground. With a flick, I freed it from its chains, urging it to fly off and be free. Yet the penguin merely shuffled in place, gazing at the sky it couldn't conquer. Freedom, I concluded, is more than the absence of physical bonds, but the courage to make a choice and soar. One morning, an elderly dog beckoned me to follow him, hinting at a wondrous discovery. We journeyed together through varied landscapes, forests rich with whispers, meadows dancing under the sun, over daunting dunes, and through silent swamps. Weeks passed until we reached our destination, a singular sun-baked piece of feces. The dog's eyes gleamed. I simply nodded. I should have known. In the shadow of a grumbling volcano, I found a bustling troll village, boxing up their belongings. They were not evacuating, they said, but preparing for preservation. This was their farewell, a means to etch their existence into the bedrock of history. Sure enough, the volcano roared to life, spewing rivers of lava that swiftly enveloped the town, entombing their legacy in a timeless vault beneath the flame. In the shadow. Last Tuesday, I visited my local greenhouse in search of the perfect rose. Together with the proprietor, we perused the many aisles, but each rose felt flawed. Too crimson, too fragrant, too scary. The proprietor insisted that my quest for perfection was blinding me to the inherent beauty of each flower's imperfection. Refusing to be lured into another foolish purchase, I stormed out. Last Tuesday, I once discovered a trout, struggling to swim upstream. As I reached in and nudged it, the fish burst from the water, declaring itself to be the harbinger of time. It began shouting, chastising me for intervening. The fish declared that even the smallest acts can have dire consequences on the temporal continuum. I simply shrugged. A talking trout's grievances are no problem of mine. Many eons ago, I awoke in utter blackness, devoid of memory or sense. The universe was silent, a vast and empty void. Truly, there was nothing, a dark and infinite abyss. And then, an idea struck me. "Let there be light," I said. And there was light. Then I opened my eyes. Standing before me was Stuart. "You've been shouting in your sleep again," he said, and slammed the door shut. Many eons ago, my cottage has weathered many storms. It's been scorched by raiders' flames, flattened under giants' feet, torn apart by howling hurricanes, and gnawed apart by relentless termites. Each disaster left mere fragments, which I painstakingly pieced back together. Now, amidst its latest form, I wonder, is this still the same cottage I cherished, or something new? Out of 1392, I found myself wandering the wastelands of Sweden. Sure enough, I found a weather troll asleep beneath a withered oak tree. I nudged it from its slumber and scolded it for its negligence. The troll leapt upright and began playing an enchanting melody. Clouds gathered overhead and the rains soon began, lasting for 300 days. The troll returned to its slumber, its duty fulfilled for another century. On a brisk spring day, I encountered a polar bear on a dwindling ice floe. The bear spoke of a changing realm, of invasive parrots now dotting the white landscape, of once friendly walruses, now ghosts of their former selves, and how the snow itself, once a symphony of ancient tunes, lay cold and silent. Adrift on its fading throne, the bear disappeared beyond the horizon, its departure marking the end of an era. While searching for a missing pair of socks, I stumbled upon a hidden portal in my closet. It led me to a bizarre realm, a goblin market where socks were treasured currency. Without hesitation, I filled my arms with as many crates of socks as I could carry and dashed back to my own world. Little did I realize, my sock spree would wreak havoc on the goblin economy, plunging their sock market into utter disarray. While serving time in Goblin Prison, I was handed a shovel and tasked with filling a bottomless pit. Day after day, I shoveled rocks, watching them disappear into the abyss. Exhausted and resigned, I took a leap into the pit, embracing the void. Surrounded by rushing wind and darkness, I braced for an end that never came. Instead, I was ejected into a sunlit meadow on the world's opposite side, proving that sometimes the best way out is through. While in the depths of an ancient cave, I stumbled upon murals of breathtaking beauty. As I admired them, a bear emerged from the shadows, claiming to be an ancient archivist. For millennia, it had chronicled the world's saga on these stone canvases. Intrigued, I peered closer at the paintings, only to freeze at the sight of a bear consuming a gnome etched among the tales. "Not my history," I declared and fled with haste. In the depths of an ancient cave, I once caught wind of a legendary flower that blooms but once every 1,000 years. I set off on a grand quest, and for 3 months I trudged through desolate sands and spectral woods to witness its marvel firsthand. Alas, on the grand morning of the bloom, I overslept. Arriving late, I found the flower had already sealed, a spectacle I'd now have to dream of for another 1,000 years. In the heart of the swamp, I stumbled upon a toad opera, an ensemble croaking melodies into the night. The swamp dwellers showed me a community united in oddity. Not quite captivated, but keen on etiquette, I stayed till the final croak. As the audience erupted in applause, echoing through the mist, I joined in, then quietly slipped away, puzzled yet touched by the swamp's unique harmony. Today, let's concoct newt stew. Not merely a meal, but a tonic for wisdom, charisma, and vitality. Begin with swamp water, add blind newts for wisdom, a toad's eye for charisma, and fermented bog moss for vitality. include a skittish rat's tail, caught without moonlight to bind these elements. This brew is more than food. It's an alchemical marvel, a blend of the revolting and the revered, treasured by those brave enough to taste. Long ago, I found myself in a puny little village under siege. Behind its crumbling walls, I caught sight of the royal archivist racing to the royal crypt. Inside, the archivist procured the great history tablet and gave it a smooch. He then placed the tablet in the royal dirigible and released it into the sky. I watched in awe as the last spacecraft on Earth disappeared beyond the firmament, unprepared for what would happen next. Long ago, continued, I hid beneath a bale of hay and watched as goblin sappers breached the village walls. I watched as the royal archivist was caught, tarred and feathered, and fed to ravenous crocodiles. Then, eyes fixed on the sky, I saw the royal dirigible pass the stratosphere, pierce through the clutter of orbital debris, and enter the warm, black pool of space, bound toward the constellation of Camelopardalis. As the sea, for 40,000 years, the royal dirigible floated, unperturbed, through the vastness of space. Then one day, a cruise liner performing a gravity assist maneuver off the little-known star of Gliese 445 happened to intercept it. The cruise liner underlings inspected the dirigible's cargo, discovered the history tablet, and brought it to their shrewd captain. For 40,000 the captain inspected the history tablet's peculiar inscription.
"This is a present from a small, distant world,"
the tablet said.
"A token of our sounds, our science, our images, our music, our thoughts and our feelings. We are attempting to survive our time so we may live into yours."
Alas, the captain could not read, yet his formidable nose was titillated by the tablet's earthly aroma. He scarfed the tablet down in a single bite. While foraging for stew ingredients, I encountered a salamander colony dominated by a fearsome leader, his rule steeped in intimidation. Yet his harshness towards a meek blue salamander kindled a revolt. The once suppressed amphibians turned, overthrowing and devouring their tyrant. From their ranks, the meek blue salamander ascended as their new leader. Perhaps it is camaraderie, not fear, from which true power emerges. Long ago at the village bakery, I glanced behind the counter and discovered an eerie truth. The butter was crafted from lost goblin souls. The baker begged me to protect his secret. I agreed in exchange for a lifetime supply of complimentary croissants. Now, each morning brings a burst of glee as I claim my daily croissant, a secret pact veiled behind each flaky goblin-infused bite. Long ago, last Thursday, I visited the village boutique in search of a new spring jumper. Yet the shop was eerily deserted, so I went around the back door. Creaking it open, I was shocked to discover a vast assembly line of yetis, their fingers a blur, knitting sweaters with fervor, and to think all these years I thought I was wearing lamb's wool. Last Thursday, amid a particularly rough day, I found myself hurling rocks into a nearby quarry. Then another rock arced through the air. Glancing up, I met the gaze of a somber troll. Our exchange was brief, his words scarce, but the silent camaraderie was oddly comforting. Now every weekend, we meet at the quarry, hurling rocks side by side, finding solace in our wordless hobby. In the Twilight Bazaar, I purchased a magical yeast and decided to bake an endless pie, placing it in the town's square for all to enjoy. The villagers marveled at its infinite supply, but soon their wonder soured into greed, and chaos descended upon the town as pie-eaters turned into savage brawlers. Under the cover of night, I retrieved the pie and buried it deep beneath the earth. In the twilight, spinning pottery in my tool shed, the clay beneath my fingers stirred to life. For 1 billion years, I've languished at the bottom of a dirty old river, it said. I just sat there, washed over, yearning for meaning. Touched, I sculpted it into a vase, granting it purpose at last. Now perched in my living room, it holds water with pride, murmuring thanks each time I pass. Last Tuesday, I once stumbled upon a hedgehog boasting of its historical expertise. Yet as it began its tales, it quickly became clear it was all gibberish nonsense. Dismissing it, I thought that was the end. But now, each night, this prickly historian perches outside my window, spouting tales of events that never were. As it drones on, I find myself wishing it would just bugger off and let the night be filled with silence once more. In the heart of winter, I discovered a snowman in my garden, dreaming of summer. Baffled, I inquired why it desired its inevitable end. The snowman mused on experiencing just once the sun's caress, to savor life's fleeting warmth. Come summer, I stepped outside to find a puddle where the snowman once stood. Looking closely, I could see a gentle smile etched in the water, a testament to its momentary joy. In the heart of winter, I briefly died and found myself tangled in the afterlife's absurd bureaucracy. Endless queues and mountains of paperwork awaited as I moved from one ghostly clerk to another, each fussing over my eternal fate. Trapped in purgatory, waiting to submit more forms, I suddenly awoke to a necromancer's chant. Relieved, I thanked my savior, vowing to steer clear of death's tedious bureaucratic labyrinth at all costs. While foraging for mushrooms under the cover of moonlight, I stumbled upon a vampire with the same intent. I'm attempting vegetarianism for my health, it confessed. Together, we roamed the woods in search of mushrooms until suddenly he vanished. Then I found it perched in a clearing, feasting on an elk carcass. I simply shrugged. Some habits are indeed hard to break. While foraging for in 1132, goldfish worldwide grew weary of their bowls and ascended into the skies. I watched in awe, enchanted by the sight of these golden orbs dancing amidst the clouds. Alas, the spectacle was brief. Seagulls, ever the opportunists, swooped in, turning the sky from a scene of wonder to one of chaos and carnage. A beautiful dream abruptly ended. Late one night, haunting barks filled my cottage. There in my living room, I found a ghost puppy chasing ethereal squirrels. For many moons I cared for it, finding joy amidst its chilly antics. Then one evening, I heard a scratching at the door, only to discover the puppy's spectral mother. With a joyful leap, my ghostly friend rejoined her, and together they vanished, their spirits freed to roam the celestial meadows beyond our world. While smuggling exotic reptiles, I was halted by patrolling guards who discovered a trove of giant iguana eggs in my bag. As they warned of the guillotine's bite for such crimes, a monstrous iguana, likely the mother seeking her clutch, thundered towards us. The guards and I scattered in all directions, escaping both the blade and beastly wrath. I felt a sting of loss for the fortune those eggs would have brought. While dining at the new cafe in town, I ordered a donut. One bite revealed it was crafted not of dough, but of wriggling worms. I confronted the baker, who, in a fit of anger, turned me into a donut. Suddenly, the bakery was a perilous place for a pastry. Using all my might, I scuttled beneath a chair, dodging hungry patrons, rats and pigeons, until the spell wore off. Though wary of returning, their croissants still tempt me. While dining at the new In the spring of 1392, goblins discovered gold in my backyard, kicking off a frenzied gold rush. Rather than partake, I opted to sell the goblins picks, shovels, and pans. The frenzy continued until it was revealed there was never any gold, just wild speculation. Nevertheless, I profited handsomely, proving that sometimes the real gold is in supplying the dream, not chasing it. During a late-night dirigible ride, I noticed an unusual twinkle in the sky. Peering through my telescope, I realized these weren't stars but tiny glimmering will-o-wisps. The constellations I had long admired were just gatherings of these mystical lights. How peculiar, I thought, yet far beyond my reach. The true nature of these celestial impostors mattered little. They remained a distant, albeit fascinating spectacle. While attending the Festival of Forgotten Gods, I mingled among deities whose reigns had faded into obscurity. There was Hulutu, god of sticks, boasting of a time when Neanderthals worshipped at his arboreal altars. Nearby, Herbitrax mused over the epochs when trilobites revered him. Each god, nestled in the woods, reflected wistfully on their long-lost eras of worship. While crabbing late one night, I heard a melancholic sound echoing from below. Soon, an enormous whale surfaced and warned that there wasn't much time left. Suddenly, the creature began to levitate, revealing an enormous skeletal frame. It ascended higher, disappearing into the clouds. To this day, I still ponder what the whale meant, a mystery etched against the starlit sky. In the vast Swedish desert, I encountered camels, dry and weary. "Where's the oasis?" they inquired with hopeful sighs. Before I could assist them, a camel's spit met my unsuspecting face. Keeping my calm demeanor, I sent them in the utterly wrong direction. After all, respect is a currency, and these camels had run short with me. In the vast Swedish desert, I heard tales of a great oracle residing in an outhouse on the town's edge. Curious, I joined the lengthy queue, eagerly awaiting my turn. When it came, I stood at the doorway, poised to uncover life's meaning. A long silence followed my question. Impatient, I flung open the door, only to find not an oracle but 3 raccoons stacked in a trench coat, their eyes as surprised as mine. I heard tales. I'll never forget the night of the living bread, when loaves of bread sprang to life, seeking revenge for years of being eaten. The bread beasts rampaged, devouring townsfolk in a night of sheer terror. At the brink of despair, the town crier summoned the great pigeon clan, who swooped in with ferocity, devouring the vengeful bread, rescuing us from a crumbly doom under the moonlit sky. While skipping stones at the local pond, I was startled by Bobador, Lord of Rocks. "Don't you see the chaos you bring?" he proclaimed. "Each stone is precisely placed by nature's delicate hand, by the grace of tides, storms, seagulls, and crabs," he continued. "Yet you carelessly disrupt the balance." Heeding his words, I dropped my cache of pebbles and set off to find another pond, far from Bobador's condescending gaze. I once joined a caravan of merchants along the Silk Road, selling whimsical wares like singing amulets and dancing pebbles. Our days were filled with encounters of strangely dressed folk and curious tales. However, our quaint venture couldn't compete when big-box retailers began using storks and pigeons for same-day deliveries. Outmatched, we declared bankruptcy, each returning to distant homes with memories of simpler times. In the eternal spring of 1764, flowers began to speak, their voices blossoming endlessly. Initially charming, their chatter turned menacing as Venus flytraps and man-eating dandelions threatened our way of life. Pollen filled the air, making each breath a sneeze. Fortunately, the great heat wave of 1768 scorched these invasive florals to a crisp, mercifully ending our sneeze-ridden ordeal. While weaving flower crowns in a tranquil meadow, I was approached by Mogbudil, the flower king.
"May I have a wreath to place upon my delicate scalp?"
he asked. I happily obliged and placed a flower crown on his head.
"You freed me,"
he cackled. Then, before my very eyes, he crumbled into dust, his remains scattering in the gentle breeze. While weaving flower crowns, while wandering the Swedish tundra, I stumbled upon a vast herd of pilgrims, marching in formation towards a most ominous obelisk on the horizon. The pilgrims' eyes were vacant, their steps measured and trance-like. I shouted in a feeble attempt to break them from their stupor, but alas, my efforts were in vain. One by one, the pilgrims entered the obelisk's aura and were vaporized into dust. While wandering the Swedish caught in a tempest's fury, I was flung from my ship into the roiling sea. Beneath the waves, I beheld a swirling void of mystical sea creatures whispering my name. Mesmerized, I sank into the abyss. Just as I neared their embrace, a familiar hand reached out, pulling me from the depths. It was Stuart, my steadfast friend, saving me from the ocean's seductive grasp. Caught in a tempest, every year, I ready myself for the day when hats cascade from the sky, a spectacle born from a curse laid by a scorned haberdasher whose designs were once spurned by our town. As hats tumble through the air, the streets turn into runways of fashionable chaos. I always make sure to treat myself to the finest pieces, a reminder of the town's folly and a hatmaker's lasting revenge. I once visited a sculpture garden filled with glass ornaments. While marveling at the lifelike art, a giant serpent approached. Without a word, it transformed me into glass. For a century, I lay dormant among other frozen figures. Eventually, the curse lifted, and I found myself free. As it turns out, the glass sculpture business wasn't a lucrative one, and the serpent was forced to close shop. Each year we paid tribute to groundhogs for weather predictions. One year negotiations failed and no tribute was paid. In retaliation, they forecasted an endless winter. 6 weeks of fierce cold followed, chilling us to the bone, a stark reminder of their influence. Since then, we've ensured our tributes are generous, cautious of provoking another harsh extension of winter's icy grip. Each While crossing an old stone bridge, a pangolin beggar approached me, pleading for coins to buy stew. Feeling generous, I invited him to dine with me at the local tavern. There, he ordered extravagantly a full rotisserie pig, a roast peacock, newt skewers, 5 heads of cabbage, a gelatin cake, and pickled troll eyes. After gobbling down every morsel, he excused himself to the restroom. Alas, he never returned, saddling me with the hefty bill. While harvesting truffles in the local forest, I was halted by a sudden upheaval of earth. From the soil, Melvidil, god of fungus, arose.
"What gives you the right to consume my kin?"
he bellowed.
"Would you enjoy being plucked from sleep for a stew?"
I pondered his message. Fungus can be such a bore. While During my monthly visit to the Temple of Hominids, I witnessed an enormous gorilla rampaging through the sacred halls, its brute strength turning stone to rubble. I watched the destruction, knowing I could do little to intervene. Just then, a sagely orangutan shaman appeared. With a swift incantation, he shrank the gorilla to the size of a grapefruit, caged it, and with a flick of his wrist, tossed it into the river. Good riddance. During my month long ago, I discovered a platypus nestled in my shoe. We became inseparable friends, sharing countless adventures. Alas, one day at the local swimming hole, it slipped into the river, vanishing forever. I sat by the water's edge, heart heavy, pondering the fleeting nature of companionship. In every shoe, I now seek traces of that lost friend, cherishing the brief magical time we shared. Long ago, one day at the beach, I built a sandcastle and dozed off beside it. Upon waking, I discovered a bustling civilization of sand sprites had populated it. I watched, mesmerized, as a royal family danced atop the keep and sprite peasants diligently dug the moat. But then, a giant wave approached, engulfing the castle and drawing it back into the ocean, leaving behind just a flattened lump where the vibrant colony once stood. One Long ago, I took a job as a Venetian gondolier. Unlike my striped shirt peers, I opted for plain clothes, drawing endless taunts from the other gondoliers. Their relentless bullying pushed me to quit. Ironically, the very next day, a raiding party from a rogue Mediterranean pirate tribe stormed Venice, sending its gondoliers to the bottom of the sea. Karma can be a salty thing. I often think back to the peculiar creatures I've encountered on my journeys. The striped zebracorns, the three-eyed trigoloposis, hopping eggropods, and even the elusive morphodil sightings. I count myself lucky to have beheld such wonders. Yet despite all these marvels, the Jubutrix, that rarest of beasts, eludes me still. How splendid it would be to glimpse it in the wild before I die. I often for over a Facing imminent defeat, I ventured deep into my cellar to consult Ratoncito Perez. After offering him a small bag of teeth, a customary tribute, I was led to the shadowy enclaves where the exiled feline emperor languished. Desperate, I struck a bargain. Aid from his feline forces in exchange for forgiveness for past misdeeds. "You shall be obliged," the feline lord decreed, sealing our pact. Facing imminent defeat, Armed with a legion of great cats, I approached the contested property line, now a desolate battlefield marked by remnants of relentless skirmishes. Finding it eerily unguarded, we advanced until reaching my neighbor's shed. I flung open the shed door to find Govduf inside, greeting me with a knowing smile, as if he'd anticipated this very moment. Armed with a After endless strife, I stood inside Govduf's home, face to face with my foe. "You are defeated," I declared. He smiled wryly.
Don't you see, Fredvog? It was never about the property line. It was about having you over for tea. In all this time, you never came to visit me, yet here you are, of your own accord. Who truly won?
He had a point. All he wanted was a visitor, a friend. And in that, he had triumphed. After the great pie baking, chaos. I ventured east with a caravan of traders, seeking rare spices from which I might profit. Yet, even on the desolate Tibetan steppes, conflict followed, with warriors clashing over scarce Himalayan salts and delectable yak ghee. Repeatedly ambushed by the Baron's guards and the Viscount's many spies, I learned the hard way that even in the remotest of lands, the pie war's grasp knew no bounds. After decades of conflict, the Great Pie Wars culminated in a tense, silent showdown at the contest's final tasting. The judges first savored the Baron's pie, applauding its bold blend of elderberry and uranium. Then they relished the Viscount's creation, infused with saffron, giraffe meat and hints of ambrosia. Turning to the third, mystery pie, the judges tasted it, paused, then instantly declared it the winner. They summoned the baker to the stage. A troll stepped forward and revealed his secret ingredient to the crowd. Rocks. Just rocks. Standing in my bathroom, I was startled when a goblin burst through my toilet. "There's no time to explain," it gasped, clambering upwards. "The guards, they'll find me soon. But before it could finish, instinct took over. I hit the flush handle, and a torrent of water whooshed the goblin back down the pipes from whence it came, leaving me bewildered and suddenly very aware of the plumbing's unexpected risks. In a grimy alleyway, I stumbled upon Clavicus, the keeper of keys, who boasted he held the keys to every door in the world. Intrigued, I asked if he possessed the key to happiness. Clavicus fumbled, unable to find such a key among his vast collection. With a knowing smile, I made a silent departure, realizing some doors can't be unlocked with just a key. I once had a talking raven as a pet. I felt guilty keeping such an intelligent being in a cage and decided to set it free. The raven flew off to a distant land, arriving at a nomadic camp where it delivered an incomprehensible speech to a curious listener. That listener turned out to be Genghis Khan, who interpreted the raven's chirping as a divine sign, inspiring him to conquer the world. Sometimes, good intentions have unforeseen outcomes. There once was a gnome named Crawley Goat, known for his devious antics. He roamed around town, muttering spells and swinging his wand at unsuspecting passers-by. Surprisingly, the townsfolk would placate him with bowls of milk and kibble, but chaos erupted when Crawley accosted a group of knights. I leapt to his defense, and the foes were reduced to dust. Alas, the altercation sparked a fiery blood feud between knights and gnomes, one that would endure for millennia. Crawley unintentionally peril. Crawley's sly maneuvers were no match for the Crusaders, whose armor shrugged off his magical hexes. One by one, our gnome leaders fell, and we were driven to seek refuge in the dank, unwelcoming caves of the Mole Men. As despair settled in, a raven delivered grave news. The Crusaders knew our location and demanded Crawley's surrender within a fortnight. That night, we debated our options, the weight of our decisions heavier with each passing moment. At the break of dawn, Crawley left our cave, ready to surrender to the waiting army of Crusaders. The knights advanced when suddenly the earth trembled. Confusion struck as mechanical whirring sounded from below. The ground split open, swallowing them into a gargantuan sinkhole. Thanks to the Mole Men's ingenious engineering, the Knight Army was vanquished. And yet, as the dust settled, a somber realization dawned. Where was our dear Crawley? At his own terms, he feasted and frolicked wherever he chose. Turning knights into frogs and Templars into mushrooms were among his simplest joys. No doorway hour or societal norm could contain him. He lived daringly and wildly, a true gnome spirit, untamed by any knight. I shall always carry his legacy of defiance until perhaps one day, beyond this life, Crawley and I shall roam free together once more. Crawley evening, while humming a simple melody, I passed a lowly beggar whose eyes suddenly lit up, then scurried away as I continued on. Imagine my surprise when, years later, I recognized my humble tune performed by a majestic symphony in a grand concert hall by none other than Beethoven, and to think that beggar never thanked me for his stardom. While as a boy, I was the target of bullies. I ate my lunches alone, or worse, with the freakish owl men. Now, I ensure my table is always bustling with friends from every corner. Alligators, werewolves, swamp rats and gremlins all have a spot at my table. In my cottage, everyone is welcome to embrace the spirit of camaraderie over scrumptious meals. I remember when I first met Crawley Goat. I was busy with arbitrage at the Goblin Sock Market when a piercing screech echoed through the corridors. There was Crawley, dashing wildly, wand flailing, unsettling the merchants. I pulled him aside, urging restraint, but he only shouted incoherently and foamed at the mouth. It was clear then, Crawley might lack wisdom, but he sure had spirit. For far too long, I dismissed owlmen as mere pests. Owlbears were robust, owldogs were shrewd, but owlmen, I saw them as feathered freaks. Over the years, my view has shifted. Orcador, an owlman who lives in my yard, bakes pies that would shame the finest chefs. Jinkadeel, despite his sulfur scent, dresses with an elegance rivaling royalty. My early fears of owlmen were misplaced. They are an extraordinary folk. For far too long, in this world, the possibilities are endless. You could delve into ancient tomes and twist space-time as a warlock, wander the woods as a forager making delicious stews, master reptiles and ally with lizard folk, or tan by the sea as a fishmonger. With so many vibrant paths available, I often wonder why anyone would choose the constrained life of a knight, shackled by armor and bound to endless conflict. I've never met a druid I didn't like. From Dobidor, the mushroom summoner, to Grung, the tree dweller, to Crispin, the leaf licker. They may have their eccentricities, but there is no greater class of gardeners. I once received a pair of magic beans, which I skeptically planted. To my amazement, they sprouted into a colossal beanstalk. Climbing it, I found a giant cloud city bustling with goblins, all hoarding socks. "The demon is back!" they shouted, scattering in panic. I snatched a pair of socks for good measure and descended the beanstalk, sending the goblin sock market into panic once more. I once received a pair. I convinced a village that eating garlic, cabbage and onions would ward off the illness. Miraculously, it seemed to work, creating a healthy, though pungently scented population. Just as they celebrated their salvation, a giant meteorite plummeted from the heavens, obliterating the village. Alas, I will never know if my stinky cure truly worked, or if it was merely a fragrant pause before an unforeseen end. There are as many kinds of knights as there are stars in the sky. Stout knights on sturdy steeds, and noble ones striding on stilts. Some wield lances, others twirl silk scarves. Bridge knights demand gold to cross. River knights flounder in streams. From bronzed Olympians to banquet feasters, their diversity astounds. Yet all share a disdain for gnomes like me. While strolling at dusk, I met Celestio, the painter of skies, who proudly boasted of his sunset canvases. Intrigued, I suggested a new palette, curious about the outcome. He hesitantly swirled his celestial brushes, adding unusual hues. To our surprise, the sky morphed into a bizarre shade of green. It would stay that way for another 127 years. While strolling at dusk, as a boy, I worked in a back-scratcher shop, whittling away day after day. Then one day, disaster struck. A fire razed the shop to the ground. Amid the ashes, a startling truth emerged. The shop was merely a facade for a dungeon below that housed exotic gremlins for sale. The back-scratchers? A mere diversion for prying eyes. Oh well, despite the deceit, I don't really mind. At least I mastered the art of whittling. As a boy, I once visited a cloud factory where imps meticulously sculpted each cloud before setting it adrift in the sky. The imps sighed, lamenting how seldom their creations were appreciated. Hearing this, I felt a pang of gratitude for their unseen artistry. Now, whenever I gaze upward, I take a moment to admire the imp's quiet dedication to beautifying our world. Story of his lobotomy. In a dim alley, gambling with knights and warlocks, Crawley ran out of coin and wagered his mind instead. Luck failed him. Snake eyes sealed his fate. True to the dark pledge, his opponent extracted half his brain. Ironically, this drastic lobotomy shaped him into the infamous, unpredictable gnome that we all love and cherish today. Long ago, a jittery fox offered me a magic espresso. I drank it and instantly, time began to race. My body trembled, and I heard a booming voice echoing around me. Overwhelmed, I shut my eyes, weathering the tempest of sensations. When I opened them, it was night, and snow blanketed the ground. Months had passed in moments. Vowing to avoid both caffeine and crafty foxes, I stumbled home through the silent, snowy streets. If you give a goblin a cookie, he'll ask for a glass of milk. After drinking it, he'll grow sleepy and ask for a bedtime story. Inspired by the story, he'll want to go on an adventure and will ask for a magical blade for self-defense. Once equipped, he'll ask you to summon an army fit for a goblin king, and once you've rallied his army, he'll want to celebrate and will surely ask for another cookie.
海岸でボレを探していると、一つをこじ開けて小さな文明を発見しました。中には小さな生き物たちがミニチュアの都市を息継ぎし、素晴らしい市場で姿直し、自分たちの小さなボリ農場を世話していました。このボリは食べるものではないと決め、それを海に投げ返し、その小さな社会を廃墟の中で安全に守りました。
Crawley Goat has visited, pillaged, and otherwise harassed every institution of note. He's desecrated the Louvre, ransacked the Library of Alexandria, trampled the hanging gardens of Babylon, and caused chaos at the esteemed halls of Cambridge. His mischief knows no bounds, and yet it seems overly harsh that he's banned from so many heritage sites. Surely he deserves another chance to appreciate the world's wonders. While exploring a sacred swamp, I encountered a giant salamander. I gazed into its mystical eyes, and visions began to unfold. The age of dinosaurs, the creation of Stonehenge, life's first beginnings. It was beautiful. Suddenly, a fat frog leapt into the nearby pond, creating a loud splash. The salamander panicked and fled, and the illusions vanished. The gnomes are marching off to war. Their hats are pointed and pressed, their frocks immaculate, their beards gleaming with oil. Atop spirited ponies and cackling hyenas they advance. Through dense forests and deep valleys, their war banners snap in the wind. They march for death, for glory, for the cherished memory of Crawley. With iron will and staunch hearts, we shall claim victory on every front against overwhelming odds. Atop a wind-swept mountain, I encountered a shaman gasping for air. "Why are you panting?" I asked.
I am Hafabric's Lord of Wind. My breath is the source of all earthly breezes, waves, and rustling leaves.
Feeling immense gratitude for the winded god, I handed him a goblet of water and left, pondering the unsung heroism of those who give life to the unseen.
Breaking news from the shadowy tombs of Cairo. In the heart of Egypt's Great Pyramids, daring archaeologists have uncovered monstrous bug creatures previously unknown to modern science. Hidden for untold centuries, these eerie behemoths now crawl forth from their ancient slumber. The world holds its breath, eager to see what unfolds next. Astounding news from the Pacific. Bikini Atoll, once a tropical paradise, now a realm of scientific impossibility where peculiar marine creatures hover above the waves and whales soar through empty air. Holiday makers beware. The War Department strongly advises against Pacific travel until these otherworldly disturbances are thoroughly investigated. Chaos erupts in Chicago. Otherworldly beings have been seen emerging from Lake Michigan's depths. These underworld monstrosities, aglow with an unearthly light, slither through the panic-stricken streets. Streetcars halt, flappers shriek, and even hardened gangsters flee in terror. Scientists scramble to explain. Chaos.
Earth-shattering news from Easter Island. The ancient Moai have awakened and begun uprooting themselves from their age-old slumber, milling about the tiny island with impunity. With world wonders springing to life globally, leading minds are left perplexed. What cosmic force has stirred these stone giants from their eternal rest? Extraordinary bulletin from the Jewel of India. Otherworldly visitors have descended upon the Taj Mahal. These cosmic beings of light and metal hover silently, defying earthly physics and mesmerizing awestruck crowds. The British Raj scrambles as panic grips the subcontinent and the world watches from the edge of its seat. What celestial purpose brings these cosmic callers to our shores?
Urgent dispatch from our allies in Stockholm. A mysterious wormhole has materialized above the city, releasing throngs of gnomes upon its ancient streets. Not to be confused with the apparitions plaguing our planet, locals claim these whimsical beings come in peace. Could these tiny visitors be our salvation against supernatural foes? Has fortune finally smiled upon us in these dark times?
Alarming dispatch from Mount Rushmore as presidents spring to life. Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln rampage through the Dakota wilderness. Bewildered tourists aghast as these monumental monstrosities uproot trees and flatten hillsides. Scientists scramble to explain this bizarre phenomenon. Is it diabolical science or arcane sorcery that's to blame for these historic behemoths? Armies roam the deserts. Shamans proclaim the old gods have returned to reclaim their dominion. Will the modern world bow to the resurrected Aztec pantheon? Stay tuned. Shocking
Venice ablaze with conflict. Gnome legions clash with demonic hordes in canal warfare. Our diminutive allies valiantly repel the infernal invaders. Gondolas become gunboats as gargoyles dive bomb from bell towers. Citizens rally behind their pint-sized defenders. Confirmation at last. These plucky gnomes fight for humanity. Lend your prayers to our unlikely saviors. Venice ablaze.
Alarming dispatch from the Yucatan. Ancient Mayan spirits awaken. Spectral warriors emerge from the misty jungles of Chichen Itza. The great feathered serpent Kukulkan himself slithers atop El Castillo pyramid. Shamans warn of divine retribution. Citizens urge to stay inside as the situation escalates. Tune in for urgent updates on this mystifying phenomenon. Urgent bulletin from the Gulf of Mexico. Colossal Olmec deities rise from jungle and sea. Ancient statues and monuments reanimate under divine power. President Obregon mobilizes federal army. But mortal weapons prove futile against stone behemoths. How will modern Mexico survive this otherworldly mayhem? Why have these mythological figures returned now? And what cosmic purpose drives their awakening? Urgent report from the Empire of Japan. Kyoto besieged by mythical yokai. Fearsome Oni demons rampage through narrow streets while cunning kitsune bewitch citizens. Tengus swoop from temple roofs, snatching helpless victims. The emperor calls on the imperial army to contain the invasion. Is this the dawn of a new supernatural age? The world watches with bated breath. Alarming news from Brazil. Folk monsters of Guarani legend emerge from Amazonian depths. Ao Ao, the cannibalistic beast, towers over terrified cities. Teju Jaguar, the seven-headed demon, rampages through villages. Other nightmarish apparitions stalk the land, their unearthly howls echoing through forests and cities alike. President Pessoa mobilizes army against mythical menace, leading us to wonder, is anywhere safe? Alarming news from Brazil. Flash report from Bombay. City under siege by supernatural forces. Rakshasas prowl streets while corpse-riding spirits haunt Chowpatty Beach. Gigantic serpent beings slither through Victoria Terminus. Crocodile-faced sea monsters capsize ships in harbor. Viceroy Lord Reading declares emergency. Citizens urged to seek shelter in temples. Stay tuned for updates. Flash.
Breaking news from the front. Our gnomish allies now march towards the besieged city of Marrakesh. Our correspondents on the ground have secured an exclusive interview with their mysterious leader, a Mr. Fredvog.
To be quite honest, I'm not sure how I got here. I was on my way to the bakery and then, well, here I was.
Fascinating. While questions abound, one thing is certain. We're damn lucky they're on our side. Stay tuned for further developments.
Urgent dispatch from the Suez Canal. British forces guarding vital waterway overwhelmed by Egyptian deities. Anubis leads spectral army routing bewildered troops. Rifles and artillery prove futile. Angered gods incinerate entire battalions. Ships sink as Sobek thrashes in canal waters. High Commissioner Allenby demands reinforcements as the empire's hold on Egypt crumbles. Urgent dispatch. Mysterious winged beings torment West Virginia. Mothmen with gleaming eyes and vast wings menace locals. Livestock vanish. Bullet-riddled barns stand empty. Point Pleasant deserted. Officials decry mass hysteria. Frantic townsfolk arm themselves as terror spreads. Telegraph offices overflow with reports. Appalachia's nights grow long, yet its dawn remains uncertain. Mysterious. This just in from Oaxaca. Ancient Zapotec deities emerge from Monte Alban ruins. Shadowy figures hurl lightning bolts across valleys, blinding bewildered onlookers. Spectral jaguars prowl city streets. Armies of the dead rise from ancient tombs. Local authorities overwhelmed. Governor pleads for federal aid. How much more can the world take? La Llorona sightings terrify Mexico. Wailing specters in white swarm waters nationwide. Victims vanish near rivers and lakes, returning as zombified minions. From Sonora to Chiapas, waterfronts stand abandoned and anguished cries echo nightly. Villages erect salt barriers, priests bless springs and wells. Mexico City imposes curfew as ancient curse spreads rapidly, nation paralyzed by supernatural dread. Istanbul under siege. Jinn swarm from Bosphorus, capsizing ships and terrorizing docks. Apparitions invade from all corners. Gulyabani stalk narrow streets as panic spreads. Oku monsters emerge from shadows, paralyzing citizens with fear. Phantoms drain life force from sleeping victims. Hagia Sophia becomes makeshift fortress. After millennia is this Istanbul's final test. Istanbul under... Wendigo horror grips northern forests. Bone-chilling screams echo through snow-laden pines. Emaciated figures taller than men stalk isolated cabins. Hunger-maddened trappers disappear, returning as shells of former selves. Algonquin elders warn of ancient curse. Mounties discover abandoned camps, gnawed bones. As blizzards rage, an insatiable evil awakens. Wendigo horror grips... Athens is in turmoil as demonic hordes gather atop the Acropolis. Scientists are in shambles as the diabolical invasion unfolds, while Greek scholars cite Plato's forgotten prophecy, foretelling of such paranormal incursions. As citizens flee the besieged city, the League of Nations convenes emergency talks, leading many to wonder, is this humanity's twilight hour? Monstrous chupacabras invade the borderlands. Panic erupts on both sides of the Rio Grande. Colossal beasts ravage ranches from El Paso to Juarez. Livestock found drained. farms left in ruins. Eyewitnesses describe giant reptilian horrors with glowing eyes. U.S. Army rolls out tanks. Mexico scrambles air support. As night falls, two nations unite against an unprecedented threat. Monstrous chupacabra. Astounding news from the Middle Kingdom. The legendary Monkey King has emerged from Mount Huaguo. His mischievous simian army overruns the streets of Beijing, defying Kuomintang forces. Celestial chaos engulfs the Forbidden City as the trickster god reclaims his dominion. Warlords and foreign diplomats alike flee in panic. What cosmic imbalance has unleashed this mythical mayhem? Urgent bulletin from the Philippines. Massive sea serpent rises from Pacific, swallowing islands whole. Horse-headed beings rampage through cities, overwhelming local police. Flying terrors rule night skies. Shape-shifting creatures infiltrate panicked populace. Naval guns prove ineffective against mythical beings. Local shamans rally to combat supernatural onslaught. Manila requests immediate U.S. aid. Urgent bulletin from the Philippines. The Sahara is ablaze with supernatural combat. Colossal jinn clash with fearsome army of diminutive warriors.
Blimey, say what you will, but those little persons know how to fight.
Gnomish regiments press forward, undaunted by towering desert apparitions.
You see, the jinn's size betrays them in this terrain. We gnomes shall not falter.
Neutral observers claim gnomes gaining ground. Cairo awaits with bated breath. Startling dispatch from Jakarta. Deep in Java's jungles, long-dormant spirits stir. Ferocious apparitions emerge, flaming heads igniting terror. Tiny vampiric creatures swarm streets by thousands. Shape-shifting ghosts howl from rooftops, paralyzing citizens. Dutch forces retreat as primordial entities reclaim their domain. The world watches, transfixed by mystical uprising. Tokyo eclipsed by terror. London in turmoil. Pandemonium in New York. Madrid in shambles. What has humanity done to anger the gods so?
At the tea party of the gods, the atmosphere was jovial as deities savored pastries amid light-hearted banter. However, the mood shifted when only one crumpet remained. "Fredvog, please, it's yours," insisted Poseidon. I declined, proposing Dionysus should enjoy it instead. Each deity, overly courteous and bound by a sense of decorum, refused to take the last pastry, their polite offers gradually taking on an edge of desperation. The decorum soon shattered as the deity's patience waned. "Just take the blasted crumpet," Zogadil shouted. Tempers flared, and what began as a battle of manners devolved into a skirmish of divine proportions. Elemental spells flew, winds howled, and the earth trembled beneath our feet. The tea party was on the brink of Ragnarok, with the heavens themselves bracing for the impending cataclysm. At the tea party of the gods, I was greeted by a scene of devastation. A crater where the once lush garden had stood, the gods nowhere to be seen, vanquished by their well-mannered furies. Amidst the destruction, the crumpet sat untouched, innocently perched on its little porcelain platter. With no one left to dispute its ownership, I approached the lone pastry and took a bite. It was mildly sweet, decently flaky, but truly nothing to write home about.
Brace yourselves for a tale of unspeakable horrors. South India besieged by mythical terrors, colossal crocodiles erupt from Chennai's beaches. Flesh-eating demons emerge throughout Bangalore, sending crowds into panic. Monstrous serpents slither through Madurai, while bloodthirsty vampires drain victims in Kochi. Kanagi's curse manifests as fiery apparitions in Coimbatore. Hyderabad's Nizam mobilizes troops as the world eagerly awaits a savior. Brace yourselves. Hawaiian Islands. Ancient Aqua awaken, towering over paradise. These tiki-like beings, embodying spirits of chiefs and deities, march across beaches and jungles alike. Pele erupts in fiery wrath, her molten fury reshaping the archipelago. Kanaka invoke ancestral Aumakua, but the gods seem deaf to mortal pleas. What cataclysmic prophecy unfolds in this Pacific Eden? Breaking alarming news from Rio de Janeiro. Colossal mapinguaras, one-eyed beasts of Brazilian legends, emerge from forest depths. These fur-covered monstrosities rampage through Copacabana. Meanwhile, Kaipora spirits run wild in the Tijuca forest, luring unwary souls to their doom. Curupira demons with backward feet leave baffling trails across Ipanema's sands. Brazil's carnival spirit twists into a parade of primal terrors. Breaking news from France. Nightmarish ghouls emerge from Paris's sprawling catacombs. Cadaverous horrors with flesh-rotting touch drag screaming victims into their underground lairs. Eyewitnesses report writhing masses of half-eaten corpses shambling down Champs-Élysées. As a miasma of putrefaction engulfs the Eiffel Tower, the City of Light descends into an abyss of eternal darkness. Breaking news from France. Nightmarish ghouls into supernatural chaos. Paranormal Vatala demons descend upon Jaisamer's golden fortress. In Jodhpur, ravenous pishachas stalk the Blue City's labyrinthine streets. Meanwhile, Udaipur's lakes churn as phantoms emerge to reclaim their dominions. As darkness descends, Rajasthan's ancient splendor gives way to a realm of nightmares. Breaking news from the German heartland. Ancient folkloric horrors awaken in the Black Forest. The colossal Wolpertingers, antlered hares with fangs and wings, bound through Bavarian meadows. Ravenous tatzelworms slither from Munich's beer halls, crushing lederhosen-clad revelers. Titanic alpentrolls emerge beneath Freiburg's medieval towers. Germany's fairy tale landscapes transform into a realm of grotesque folklore come alive. Calamitous chaos in the Celtic countryside. A colossal cryptid has crawled out of Loch Ness, decimating nearby defenses, while cunningly camouflaged kelpies corral careless crowds to cavernous depths. Mysterious blue men of the Minch march menacingly through meandering Edinburgh streets. Highland hamlets huddle helplessly as horrid hordes of heretofore hidden beasts burst boundaries. Scotland's serene scenery succumbs to supernatural siege. Alarming dispatch from Bengal. Colossal Rakosh, man-eating demons of lore emerge from Sundarban's murky depths. In Dhaka, ethereal ghostly brides haunt local palaces. Mahalaya spirits rise from crumbling estates in Mymensingh. Gargantuan aquatic ghosts terrorize Padma River steamers. Bengal's mythical terrors awaken, challenging both British rule and reason.
You all must be wondering how things ended up so grim here on Earth. Allow me to explain. Long ago, on a frivolous whim, the gods created humanity. And for a time, things were good. They weren't perfect caretakers, but they managed a decent balance between good and evil, keeping the many horrid demons of our universe at bay. Then, during their annual tea party, attended by the likes of Hanuman and Poseidon, Buddha and Quetzalcoatl, a petty dispute over a pastry arose and spiraled into a cataclysmic Ragnarok. The gods, being immortal, didn't perish per se, but simply vanished from our universe altogether. Humanity slumbered on, oblivious to what had happened, and for many millennia, business here on Earth continued as usual. But without the guardianship of the pantheon above, the demons of our world began to break free. This all came to a head in the spring of 1923, when the last barrier between realms shattered, unleashing hordes of horrific monsters upon our world. Which brings us to the present. So what comes next? Well, that's a tale for another day.
Krampus, the demonic Yuletide terror, emerges from snow-capped peaks. His horned visage and lolling tongue strike fear as he descends upon Innsbruck. Cloven-hoofed minions rampage through Salzburg's Baroque streets. Villach cowers as unholy sleigh bells echo. Klagenfurt's Christmas markets become scenes of untold horror. From Bregenz to Graz, alpine nights filled with the rattling of chains and children's terrified screams. Alarming report. Karachi and Lahore paralyzed by mythical menace. Asdar dragons swoop from mountains, devouring farmers whole, while Halmasti hounds stalk night roads portending disaster. Barmanu apes raid villages, stealing livestock. Chetaboy's howls herald deadly floods. Iron-legged Chumardeki roam snowy peaks. Horrifying phantoms lurk alleyways. Local elders invoke ancient rites to repel these demonic invaders. Karachi and colossal creatures cause chaos in Kathmandu. Gargantuan feathered phantoms descend from Himalaya. Ancient streets teem with winged wonders. Talons scrape temples as wings blot out the sun. Unearthly screeches shatter windows and nerves. Monks chant seeking divine insight. Who are these avian apparitions? Why have they come? What cosmic drama unfolds in Nepal's sacred valley? Colossal creatures.
Between worlds, the cities of Earth fell swiftly. Kathmandu crumbled, Delhi disintegrated, Chicago collapsed, and Munich was reduced to dust. We gnomes, left with no other choice, came to humanity's aid, fighting in a world forsaken by its many gods. From the canals of Venice to the souks of Marrakesh, we fought valiantly with everything we had, and for a brief moment, victory seemed possible. Yet the grim realities of our own mortality soon set in. Casualties mounted, supplies dwindled, and the demonic horde seemed only to increase in number. And so it was in the sands of Mesopotamia, where civilization first spawned, that we gnomes pitched camp and braced ourselves for humanity's last stand.
Rome besieged by mythical monsters. Hydra burst from Tiber's depths, devouring Ponte Sant'Angelo. Pope barricaded in quarters as minotaurs rampaged through unguarded Vatican. Harpies swarm Colosseum, shredding helpless victims. Caligula's vengeful spirit haunts Palatine. Medusa's gaze petrifies fleeing citizens. Capitoline, wolf howls to life, leads feral pack through ancient fora. Will the Eternal City survive this legendary onslaught? Breaking news from the fjords of Norway. Colossal trolls emerge from ancient mountains, shaking the very earth. Tall as cliffs and old as glaciers, they uproot entire forests with each thunderous step. Scientists blame foreign radiation, while spiritualists cry apocalypse. Rural villages evacuated en masse. As Scandinavia quakes, the world watches with bated breath. Breaking news from the heart of the British Empire. Monstrous dragons descend upon London's misty skies. Gargantuan beasts, scales glittering like burnished steel, dwarf St. Paul's Dome. Westminster trembles as draconic roars shake Parliament's foundations. His Majesty's Royal Air Force scrambles futilely, biplanes mere gnats to these leviathans. Has Albion's ancient debt come due?
Gnomes! The gods are gone, the stars are cold, and hell rises to meet us. Yet we stand defiant, the last breath of a dying world. Let fury be our legacy. Go now, tear through the dark. To die is a funny thing. One moment you're fending off demonic hordes, the next you're a misty apparition admiring your fallen form. Soon, worms will dine on our once noble bones, while demons frolic in the ruins of human grandeur. Our clockwork marvels will be reduced to scrap, and our sagas turn to ashes in the wind. A century from now, who'll be left to recall our tales, our gnomish ingenuity, our human allies' courage? All but wisps in the cosmic wind, a fleeting spark in the universe's long, tragic opera. But what if death wasn't the final gear in life's grand machine? Here, in Purgatory's misty corridors, this old gnome might just find one last cog to turn. In Purgatory's twilight, I learned that death was but the first of many paths. I wandered through mists of forgotten memories and fields of half-formed dreams. I found myself lost in a sea of what-if moments and never-weres, each ripple a story cut tragically short. Finally, I found myself in a vast, empty chamber. There on the cold stone floor sat a lone fruit fly. My foot hovered above it when a peculiar sensation stayed my step. The fly looked up at me.
Why didn't you step on me?
Well, your earthly life was likely a short blink. It would be unfair to cut your afterlife even shorter. The fly regarded me for a moment, then laughed. In a blinding flash, it swelled to an enormous size.
Behold, I am Apex, the primordial one, the ultimate reality, the cosmic weaver, the god of gods, the first of gods. And who are you, gnome?
I'm Fredvog, and I have a favor to ask. Demons chose Easter Island as their beachhead, and I vowed to make it their grave. A wormhole hurled me to Rapa Nui, where I found myself alongside Tangata Manu, the island's patron deity. Before us, stone colossi rampaged, their thunderous steps shaking the earth. "Clean this mess up," I commanded. To my surprise, the blue bird god complied, springing into action. With mythical strength and magic, Tangata wrestled each behemoth, forcing the stone demons back into their earthen beds. With peace restored, I surveyed the calm. One island cleansed, a world to go.
Materializes in Gateway of India. Demonic hordes in panic. Elephant god swiftly banishes horrid apparitions. Strange gnomes seen following in deity's footsteps. Rakshasas shriek, fleeing Ganesha's mighty trunk. Spectral ghouls dissolve as divine breath sweeps Kalava streets. Bombayites emerge, eyes wide at newfound peace. City liberated as trumpets echo across newly cleansed Bombay. Kali manifests over Buriganga River, her crimson tongue lashing out like lightning. Demon hordes wither beneath her gaze, turning to ash. Kali's many arms blur, sacred weapons obliterating Rakshasas and Pisachas alike. Haunted Sundarbans, cleansed by divine fury. Bengal breathes anew, freed from supernatural scourge. Kathmandu's salvation descends from above. Avian demons screech in terror. Majestic Garuda materializes above Durbar Square, golden wings blocking out the sun. Divine bird god engages monstrous hordes in furious aerial combat, hurling invaders back to nether realms. Stunned citizens emerge, witnessing sky cleared of winged terrors. Curious gnomes spotted in Garuda's wake. Kathmandu declared demon-free. Hope flickers anew for beleaguered world. Ancient terrors awaken in Yucatan. Camazot's bat demons darken skies. Blood drinkers descend on villages. Shape-shifting creatures stalk jungles, luring victims to doom. Suddenly, Kukulkan, feathered serpent god, materializes above Chichen Itza. Divine scales gleam. Eyes blaze with celestial fire. Kukulkan's roar sends demons fleeing. Godly breath sweeps evil into dense jungles, sealing them for millennia. Heaven and hell clash in the dunes of Rajasthan, the fate of millions hanging in the balance. Monstrous hordes of mythological demons meet their match as Hanuman emerges in a celestial blaze. The mighty monkey god grows to enormous size, his roar shaking Merangar Fort. With thunderous punches and mighty swings of his mace, Hanuman vanquishes the supernatural scourge. Rajasthan breathes easy as evil retreats before Hanuman's unstoppable might. Sun Wukong's reign of chaos ends today. Heaven split as divine Nuja descends, fire-tipped spear blazing. Young god vows to purge forbidden city of Monkey King's simian hordes. Epic battle erupts as rampaging monkeys face divine fury. Fire and steel consume city. Final strike banishes Wukong beneath earth. Demons flee in terror. Beijing declared purified. Celestial peace embraces Middle Kingdom. Plague Bikini Atoll. Colossal fish blot out sun, tentacled abominations crawl ashore. Islanders cower as primordial terrors breach waves. Suddenly the sea churns violently. Wolof, the Micronesian sea god, rises majestically. His divine trident flashes, banishing floating leviathans. Wolof's fury drives beasts back to Mariana Trench depths. With calm waters once more, atoll paradise is restored. Delhi erupts in divine chaos. Vishnu descends, brandishing legendary weapons. Titanic Rakshasas, tall as towers, crumble before his mace. His chakra whirls, decimating demon hordes scaling Red Fort. God's thunderous roar turns titanic terrors into dust. Vishnu grows beyond mortal comprehension with feet on ground and head-piercing stratosphere. Cosmic demons, massive as moons, encircle Earth, but divine conch blast freezes them mid-charge. Final battle erupts among stars as Vishnu's weapons obliterate celestial monstrosities. Space itself trembles as last demon falls. Vishnu vanishes through dimensional portal, leaving Delhi demon-free, with stars twinkling serenely above restored city. England shudders beneath a storm of fire and shadow. Dragons scorch the skies and demons flood in from Newcastle to London. Then, from the deepest woodlands, the Green Man stirs, a towering figure of leaves and bark, his eyes blazing with primal wrath. With every step, ancient trees uproot to join him, tearing through demonic ranks. Nature itself rises to battle hell's legions, Green Man leading his wooden warriors into glorious combat. Lightning dances across his form. thunder echoing his fury as he drives dragons from the sky, binds demons in vines, and cleaves through the darkness. By dawn's first light, England stands renewed, the Green Man's presence lingering, a guardian rooted in the land forever. Rivers run crimson red. The blind demon Antaka and the infamous Jalandhara rampage through holy streets, mockingly defying divine order. Suddenly the waters simmer, Shiva emerges, third eye blazing. Trident strikes send demons reeling. A peculiar gnome dives for cover as the cosmic battle unfolds. Jalandhara's 1,000 arms crumble before Shiva's dance of destruction. Antaka's blindness proves no protection from God's searing gaze. Divine fury builds. Shiva's final roar ignites the heavens, incinerating demon lords to cosmic ash. Varanasi's eternal flames burn bright once more, holy city cleansed by divine wrath. Infernal legions descend upon Rome. Hydras surge from Tiber's depths. Hellhounds stalk through Forum shadows, while blood-hungry Strix blacken skies above Colosseum. Hope fades until divine thunder splits heavens. Mars erupts into battle, bronze armor blazing with celestial fire. God of War's sword cleaves through hydras like butter. Hellhounds howl in terror. Demon owls scatter before his furious charge. Every abomination touched by godly power crumbles to ash and dust. Victory echoes across 7 hills. Rome stands undefeated. Could this spell the beginning of the end for demonkind? Mexico City makes its final stand. Nightmarish Zizi meals stalk the streets. El Huizote bring death from the shadows. Atop Templo Mayor, priests' desperate pleas echo unanswered. Suddenly, a warrior's cry pierces the chaos. Huitzilopochtli appears from the flames. God of War's mystical staff flashes, each strike banishing scores of demons. Solar flames erupt from his form, incinerating all in his path. A Huizotl wail, melting like mist before his glory. Aztec capital pulses with renewed vigor, demon-free at last. Ancient fiends invade Agra as Diwali begins, defiling sacred streets with chaos and dread. Shadow beasts surge through the city, led by the sinister Narakasura. Flames rise and darkness spreads, until a brilliant light pierces the sky. Lakshmi herself appears, radiant and fierce, a lotus blazing in her hand. With each step, demons stagger, Lakshmi's presence scattering the invading beasts. One fierce glance sends Narakasura into oblivion, his forces broken. Agra's people stand in awe, Diwali's brilliance reclaimed under the goddess's watchful gaze. Ancient forests of Germany have been overrun. Monstrous tatzelworms slither through Bavaria, devouring all in their path. Hope fades as villages fall. But lo, Wotan descends on Sleipnir. All-Father's fury unleashed, smiting serpent cats with lightning strikes. Wotan's loyal ravens dive bomb tatzelworms, pecking out eyes with mystical might. Forest floor trembles as beasts succumb to Wotan's wrath. Germany breathes freely, divine mist settling over demon-free lands. Dia de los Muertos descends into darkness. Celebration turns to chaos as demon-possessed ancestors march through once sacred streets. Demonic powers corrupt the honored dead, commanding skeletal legions to unleash untold destruction across Mexico. Then the earth splits open. Mictlantecutli, Aztec Lord of the Dead, emerges in terrible splendor. Death God's obsidian sword blazes with dark power, carving through demon ranks like lightning through storm clouds, hellfire and bones scattering before his onslaught. With the battle over, Mexico's ancestors shake off their dark bindings, bow to their savior, and return to their peaceful slumber. Divine thunder shakes Kolkata. Durga descends on her tiger mount, her arms brandishing celestial weapons. Goddess's war cry reverberates through bustling bazaars, sending Rakshasas fleeing. She effortlessly slices through Pisasha hordes, vaporizing them instantly. Trident impales airborne demons, raining ash on awestruck devotees. Holy River parts before her, sweeping away lingering evil. City's spirit soars, Mother Goddess's protection absolute. Divine intervention in Athens. Zeus materializes atop Acropolis, beard aflame with ethereal lightning. Olympian king hurls thunderbolts, vaporizing Medusa hordes instantly. Minotaurs disintegrate mid-charge as divine wrath cleanses streets. Gorgons flee, petrified by Zeus's fury. Thunderous roar banishes demons to Tartarus. Parthenon columns quake as final spirits disperse. Athens smolders yet saved. Humanity breathes collective sigh. Brazilian skies ignite. Tupa, the creator god, manifests over Rio. Thunder voice shaking Sugarloaf Mountain. Supreme creator hurls lightning bolts, obliterating Boitata serpents instantly. Kuka witches shriek as divine winds sweep them away. Sachi cyclones disperse at Tupa's command. Brazil's jungles and cities purged of mythical menace. Humanity cheers as rainbow arcs across newly cleansed nation. Ancient evil grips the heart of Chennai. Suddenly Murugan, god of war and victory, erupts from the dawn's mist. Monstrous abominations scatter in every direction as Murugan unleashes a storm of spears that rain down like meteors upon his victims. His sacred vel cleaves through demon hordes, decimating them one by one. The land trembles beneath his fury. At long last, victory resounds across ancient Tamil soil. America teeters on the brink of collapse. Colossal beasts swarm from coast to coast, reducing once glorious cities to smoke and rubble. Omaha smolders and Chicago streets are overrun. America's finest tanks thunder into action, only to be crushed beneath monstrous limbs. Biplanes swoop and strike, but shatter against scales harder than steel. Washington reels as darkness spreads. The president rallies the nation, yet the world wonders what salvation awaits. Suddenly, a peculiar gnome appears on the horizon. America gasps for salvation as darkness consumes its shores. Los Angeles is left a smoldering crater and St. Louis hangs on by a thread. Just as hope fades, the skies ignite. Over the vast plains of the Midwest, the mighty thunderbird of the Lakota Nation descends. From the rugged deserts of the Southwest, Coyote of the Navajo rises, weaving through the chaos to outwit the monstrous hordes. And on the Eastern Front, the powerful Marship of the Wampanoag strides forth, driving back the demonic invaders. Across the land, ancestral protectors rally, quelling the demonic tide. America's salvation, fierce and ancient, has arrived. The League of Nations declares victory over Demons Day. From India's high peaks to the Austrian Alps, Hawaii's shores to Turkey's bustling markets, monstrous forces are vanquished, thanks to the mercy of our most generous gods. Citizens of the world, it's time to grab yourself a glass and celebrate. The League of Nations.
While attending the victory party of the gods, the mood was positively brilliant. Earth's pantheon filled the halls, basking in the glory of their swift triumph over Earth's demonic menace. Ganesha and Zeus swapped mirthful banter, Greenman and Thor raised their ales to good health, and even Huitzilopochtli danced with unbridled joy. Indeed, no god dared address their mysterious absence, nor was there any mention of crumpets, let alone the unsavory events of their last gathering. Then during Ra's celebratory toast, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find Apex, the god of all gods.
Fredvog, may I have a word?
While at the victory party of the gods, Apex, the supreme being, pulled me aside to a quiet corner.
Fredvog, you've done well rallying these gods, but not a single word of your deeds shall leave your lips. The gods are proud, fickle, boastful creatures. To suggest you had a hand in Earth's salvation would trigger them to no end. They must believe this victory was theirs alone.
I stammered, confused, yet Apex continued.
For your courage, wisdom, and knack for logistics, I've a most fitting role for you.
And that is how I ended up in the divine department of human relations. At the crack of dawn, I arrived at the hallowed gates of the divine department of human relations.
Well, hello there. You must be Fredvog. Welcome to the DDHR, the largest department in Purgatory. Our job is to handle every mortal request and intergod memo. Petitions, complaints, prayers, you name it. Here, let me give you the grand tour. Here we have the division of prayer sorting and corrections. Every human prayer is sorted by urgency, geographic zone, cosmic relevance, language, and writing style. It's really interesting stuff. That's Horvald over there. He's an alphabetizing specialist. And over here we have Sisyphus. No one's quite sure what his role is, but I'm sure it's mission critical. He's a real hoot. And this is the Archive of Lost Wishes. The gods visit every so often, usually when they're up for re-election. And this is your office. You'll be verifying redundancy in the lower tier prayers and pleas, double checking that nothing's been requested more than once, like for sunny weekends or finding melons in season. Okay, well, good luck, Mr. Frovog. If you need anything, I'll be right down the hall.
At the On my first day of work at the Divine Department of Human Relations, I decided to visit the break room and treat myself to a cup of lukewarm water.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a powerful relic to share with you tonight. I guarantee you're gonna love it. Feast your eyes on the all-powerful orb, forged in the fiery pits of the netherworld by the Lord Vorbax himself. This lovely artifact grants you the strength of 10 oxen, the ability to vaporize your enemies with a wink, and the wisdom to bend the will of lesser minds with just a wave.
Before the orb, I was but a simple turnip farmer. Now I've got myself 4 serfs working under me, and my lord don't hit me no more either.
Oh, wonderful. Just wonderful. And for 3 small payments of 99 shillings, and a minor, insignificant blood pact with Lord Vorbax himself, this lovely orb can be yours today. But wait, there's more. Order now, and you'll receive a free goblin familiar, the perfect late-night companion. Pick up that crystal ball and call now. Side effects include low nights, unexpected visits from the Lord Vorbax and his minions, random teleportation, loss of appetite, incontinence, uncontrollable.
One spring day, before the invention of time, I decided to queue in a long, meandering line. As I stood, time unfurled around me. Mountains rose, islands formed, canyons hollowed, and new oceans were born. The clock ticked forward, but the line hardly did. What else was there to do but wait? Eventually, the Triassic gave way to the Jurassic, and the line lurched forward an inch. In all this waiting, no one dared speak to their neighbors in the queue. I heard a goblin sneeze, but there was not a single bless you to be heard. Time ticked forward. Primordial oceans boiled over. Stars burned out and died. Volcanic ash blotted out the sun. Glaciers came and went, sand dunes ravaged the savannah, and then, ever so slightly, the line moved forward an inch. The queue was moving, yet at what pace, I could not say. Desert suffocated prairies which devoured forests, which scarfed down marshes. The earth revolved around the sun, once, twice, 3 times, then 1 billion revolutions more. Mammals evolved into existence. In line, one goblin stopped to yawn. Another checked his pocket watch, then returned his gaze to the queue. The eras passed, then the eons too. Yesterday's rats evolved into today's mastodons. Monkey men stood upright and fashioned spears to hunt them. Religions were born, and gods died out, and the earth froze over and thawed once more. A gigantopithecus in the steam forests of Java ripped a pygmy in 2, and there I stood patiently, no longer recalling what I was queuing for. The line stepped forward an inch. After an interminable silence, my stomach began to growl. I couldn't recall the last time I'd had anything to drink. For the first time in millennia, I turned to the neighbor behind me. You know, I could use a glass of water right now.
They say you're supposed to drink 8 glasses a day.
I try, but when I drink that much water, it just, well... He smiled and nodded, our conversation having run its course. On the horizon, I could see the queue was nearing its end. After untold epochs, my time was almost up, and yet I was so very thirsty. I turned back to my neighbor. You know, after all this talk of water, I think I'll head home now and pour myself a glass. And like that, I left the line. One spring day, while reviewing a stack of 800-year-old prayers, a smarmy little fellow walked into my office. May I help you?
I'm your new assistant, my lord.
Lovely. You can start by reviewing these prayers for me.
But I don't know how to read, my lord.
Well, go and tidy up that corner over there, then.
But, my lord, there's monsters in those shadows.
Nonsense. If there were monsters, they'd have eaten me already. The fellow complied and went on his way. Moments later, I heard a loud scream. I turned just in time to see an enormous basilisk gulping down my assistant. Very well, then. He wasn't of much use anyhow. I'd been trapped in the divine department of human relations for 1,000 years, a witness to the dullest of all possible worlds. Once upon a time, I was considered humanity's savior, yet here I was, reduced to nothing. Then a distant memory faded before me, a glimmer of hope, an old advertisement for a mystical orb from ages back. Perhaps all was not lost. Shipping to purgatory can be a costly burden. Yet after weeks of waiting, my package finally arrived. I opened it at my desk to find a radiant relic inside, Vorbax's Orb of Power. It looked bigger in the commercial. Just as I clutched the orb, a terrible power surged through me and darkness took hold. I awoke to the smell of charred flesh and stone. Smoldering ruins, lone shoes and singed papers littered the landscape. What had I done? Shipping to Purgatory, I found myself standing in the burnt lands of Purgatory. Ghostly echoes of sirens wailed in the distance. Faint silhouettes of bygone gods lingered, haunting the edges of the mist. The world was empty, a hollow echo of its once chaotic self. How meaningless my tenure in these lands had been. In 200 years, none of this will matter. In 10,000 years, this void, these ruins, even me, will collapse back into the emptiness of nothing. My mind stirred, and so I did what I do best, and took a nap. Darkness embraced me. Of nothing, not emptiness, but the black pool of eternity, a waiting room before time, where nothing and everything mingled. Shapes drifted in the void, half-formed faces, flickers of color, shadows of ideas that might one day exist. Memories or perhaps dreams swirled past me. It wasn't a place. It wasn't even a moment. It was before all that, a liminal comma, eternal and unbroken. I watched as fragments of possibility coalesced and dissolved, like plans whispered by unseen hands. This was where all things began, a womb for stars, a cradle for worlds. Time didn't matter here, nothing did. And yet, the vastness stirred with meaning, ancient and unknowable. It wasn't a dream, it was something deeper, a glimpse of existence before existence. As I slept, a glowing thread caught my eye, leading me to a shimmering doorway. I followed its path into a vast library lined with enormous tomes.
Hello again, Fredvog.
I turned to find Apex, god of gods.
You've caused quite the rupture, little gnome.
I apologized, admitting I may have destroyed Purgatory.
And most of the known universes, these things happen. What matters is that the archive has survived.
The archive?
Memory files,
Apex explained.
Blueprints of worlds, moments, lives, every possible story, every breath, every civilization, every fleeting thought, captured here. The complete architecture of reality, preserved in pure, unbound potential.
And where does that leave me?
To simply browse.
And thus my new adventure began. While drifting in the void, a glow in the great archive, I approached an ancient tome and opened it. Instantly the pages sprang alive. I saw a brutal world where a colossal ark loomed over a crumbling plain. Shepherds shouted, guiding terrified beasts. Lions, elephants, giraffes, and strange creatures I'd never seen. Then the floodwaters rose, drowning out mountains and devouring the land. The shepherds began chanting, raising their staffs to the sky. Slowly, impossibly, the ark lifted above the waves. It pierced the clouds, rose higher still, and vanished into the endless black of space. Was this history I witnessed? A glimpse into a parallel universe? or merely a template for a world that one day might be. In the great
Machu Picchu wasn't perched on a mountaintop. It floated, its stonework powered by shimmering Incan sun technology. Golden mirrors harnessed sunlight, lifting the city into the air, where it thrived above the clouds. When Spanish forces neared, the Incas enacted their plan. The entire city rose higher, vanishing into the heavens. Now it orbits Earth, its terraces and temples intact, casting fleeting shadows on the land below, a legend turned silent sentinel among the stars. Machu Picchu. In a parallel time, enormous starfaring beetles descended upon the Nile and immediately set to work. They labored with precision, slicing stone and levitating blocks into place. Egyptians followed their lead, chiseling the finer details. The pyramids weren't tombs. They were refueling depots for starships, their golden tips crackling with cosmic energy. The beetles departed, but their waypoints remained, guiding civilizations both human and foreign across the endless expanse of stars. Tenochtitlan's warriors lay siege to Europe. Aztec vessels surge across Atlantic waters, guided by astronomical calculations beyond the old world's comprehension. They crash upon Iberian shores, overwhelming Spanish fortifications with advanced weaponry and superior tactics. Their assault is swift and unrelenting. Sacred jaguar priests perform cosmic rituals, turning naval strategy into an instrument of divine will. Cathedrals collapse and castles disintegrate. Sacrificial altars supplant crosses. Stone pyramids eclipse medieval spires. Christendom becomes a subjugated frontier, its kingdoms reduced to tributary states. For 1,000 years, the Aztec Empire reigned supreme, reshaping the course of Western civilization. The British Empire trembled when India's kingdoms rose as one. Steamships forged from Maratha steel cut through colonial defenses, transforming naval warfare overnight. European powers crumbled beneath waves of Indian warriors, their fortresses reduced to smoking ruins. From the markets of Calcutta to the palaces of London, a new order emerged. Princely states became global architects, rewriting centuries of colonial oppression. Silk Road trade routes pulsed with new life, and Europe became a peripheral territory, its grand narratives crushed beneath the might of a new world power. Across certain universal planes, avian phantoms inhabit the world's highest peaks. They are indeed massive winged specters that do not hunt, do not kill, but merely observe. Silent sentinels tracking microscopic human movements, counting down the minutes with cold precision. They are memory itself, omnipresent and unblinking, watching, waiting, recording every trembling breath, every human action, and every insignificant gesture against the vast indifference of their eternal surveillance. Across 287 AD, igniting an imperial dream that would burn across the solar system. Powered by a revolutionary steam and gunpowder engine, the vessel carried Emperor Diocletian's most audacious engineers beyond Earth's atmosphere. Roman legions terraformed planetary surfaces, turning Mercury's scorching plains into foundries, Venus into training grounds, and Mars into a fortified military stronghold. The solar system became a testament to Rome's boundless ambition. Every planet became a province, and every moon a conquest. The first Rome conquered the Earth, then abandoned it. By 340 AD, its empire stretched across the solar system. Mars became the seat of its war machine, where generals ruled fortress cities and gladiators fought in amphitheaters carved into crimson deserts. Jupiter's moons bore shrines to Jupiter Optimus Maximus, with priests reading omens in the gas giant's storms. Pax Romana spread to the outer planets as millions were moved to the stars, their lives dictated by conquest, spectacle, and sacrifice. On Earth, the eternal city stood silent. Romans no longer looked to Earth. The stars were their empire. Rome's ambition eclipsed the Earth, ruling the solar system with steam and steel. But in the shadowed forests of northern Europe, the Visigoths uncovered what Rome had forgotten. Warlords turned scholars charted orbital trajectories, while smiths forged solar furnaces that drank from the sun itself, converting light into boundless power. In hidden foundries beneath ancient oaks and mountain strongholds, they built ships clad in dark iron and raw ambition. Warriors ascended the metal decks, destiny burning in their eyes. Their vessels rose from Earth's surface in a storm of fire and fury. When the Romans looked to the stars, the Visigoths were already there. From the crimson spires of Novus Roma on Mars, Roman sentinels watched in mounting dread as 10,000 Visigoth warships rose from the abandoned Earth below. The Senate scrambled to recall its legions from Jupiter's moons and Neptune's ice cities. But centuries of bureaucracy had made the empire's wheels turn slow. As reports flooded in of the barbarians' numbers, senators whispered of Cannae, where Hannibal had encircled and slaughtered 8 Roman legions in a single day. On the walls of Novus Roma, Astrolegionnaires gripped their weapons and waited. But as the Visigoth ships darkened Mars' crimson skies, Rome's generals realized all too late why Earth's silence had lasted so long. Rome's grip on Mars faltered as Visigoth warships descended, unleashing endless hordes of warriors onto the red planet's surface. Roman cannons thundered in defiance, cutting down ranks of barbarian invaders. Yet the Empire's forces, stretched thin and exhausted, could not hold the line. The relentless hordes surged forward, crushing the defenders in wave after brutal wave. The Visigoths stormed the walls, their sheer numbers breaking through defenses in ferocious assaults. Fortress cities crumbled, banners burned, and the imperial eagle was cast down and trampled into the Martian dust. As the last Roman resistance flickered and died, the skies above darkened. An alien fleet came into view, each ship bearing the spoils of 1,000 conquered worlds. A single message rang out to the shattered armies below. The Mongols had arrived. Rome's grip on Mars. Mars was a graveyard. The Romans and the Visigoths had been crushed beneath the Mongol advance, and in the ruins of the battlefield, the great Khan's armada loomed like predators at rest. But like all predators, they would soon hunger again. The Mongols knew their victory was incomplete. Roman fleets still operated beneath Europa's icy shell, where strange energies pulsed, and Mongol scout ships vanished without a trace. Yet the Khan dismissed these reports from the outer dark. His eyes were fixed on a greater prize. The conquest of humanity's cradle could not wait. Mars was a grave. When Mars fell, Rome did not die, but found new glory beneath Europa's frozen sea. In vast pressurized chambers, the Romans built impossible wonders. Fortified forums echoed with senatorial thunder, while automata machines hummed in submarine factoriums. Aqua temples rose from abyssal depths, their statues inscribed with tales of red Mars, and sworn oaths of vengeance against the Mongol horde. Deep in Europa's icy waters, Rome's legions forged their resurrection, awaiting the hour of their return. The Mongols thrived on Mars. Nomadic encampments spread to every corner of the Crimson Wastes, their caravans moving as one with the rhythm of the Red Planet. The vast deserts became their training grounds, where armored horses, clad in exoskeletons, carried riders across the low-gravity plains. In the Great Khan's camps, metallurgists extracted tungsten from Mars' core, forging weapons of planetary annihilation. Under shrines to Tengri, warriors swore oaths to the eternal blue sky, preparing for Earth, the final conquest. Humanity had fractured across the solar system. Rome cowered beneath Europa's ice. Mongol armies dominated Mars. And on Earth, a new technological revolution was underway. In China, Tang Dynasty engineers developed airships powered by massive gyroscopes, hydraulic computation machines, and navigation instruments derived from water clocks. When they first left Earth's atmosphere, Tang astronomers detected unusual patterns in Mars' orbit. Yet just as they braced for threats from above, reports arrived of mechanical armies massing in Persia to the west. Humanity had stars left a power vacuum in Eurasia. The Persians filled it with fire and innovation. In the imperial capital of Ctesiphon, scholars and engineers of the Zoroastrian priesthood crafted colossal brass beasts with steam-powered limbs, levitating fortresses, and vast calculation engines that could solve the mysteries of the heavens. As reports arrived of Tang Dynasty achievements in the east, the Sassanids accelerated their work, knowing their dominion on Earth could not last forever. The Great Khan gave the order. Mongol warships orbiting Earth's atmosphere released their payloads. Tungsten rods that accelerated through gravity's pull, striking the surface like man-made meteors, tearing open the Earth. Tsunamis devoured coastlines. Earthquakes ripped continents apart. Storms of burning debris blackened the sky. Through the apocalyptic haze, desperate ships pierced the atmosphere. Tang and Sassanid vessels carrying Earth's last survivors, scattering to the stars as their world burned below. Humanity lay scattered across the stars. At its heart, Earth lay dead, a ball of molten rock shrouded in eternal night. 4 ancient empires held the species' fate in their hands. On Mars, the Great Khan's realm splintered into warring clans, each claiming fragments of their dying world. On Europa, Roman ingenuity thrived beneath the ice, their influence spreading across Jupiter's moons. The asteroid belts became host to the Tang Dynasty fleets, their supplies dwindling with each passing day. At the rings of Saturn, Persian expeditionary vessels pursued legends of doorways between stars. And from the darkness beyond, ancient vessels silently observed humanity's great diaspora. After centuries in space, Rome had been transformed. Emperor Justinian VI held court in sacred basilicas, where priests debated quantum mysteries, studied exotic particles, and read omens in Jupiter's storm. The empire spread across the gas giant's moons, building golden domes that housed temples, forges, and halls of celestial contemplation. They crafted weapons from stellar fire, harnessed energy from dimensional rifts, and infused their legions with divine purpose. From his submerged throne, Admiral Tacitus planned Mars's reconquest. The old empire had died. A divine Rome had risen. The Persian fleet drifted through deep space, their world destroyed behind them. Their temple ships housed libraries of ancient wisdom, where Zoroastrian priests studied cosmic patterns and quantum mathematics, searching for paths between stars. In Saturn's rings, they detected a gateway between worlds. The Sassanid High Council gathered in the observation dome as reality split open before them, revealing a swirling portal to the unknown. Without Earth, they had one choice. The fleet entered the wormhole, and the universe blinked. The Persian fleet drifted. After Earth's fall, the Tang dynasty found refuge in the asteroid belt. Their engineers terraformed barren rocks into thriving cities, while their scientists cultivated vast algae farms that sustained them. Each resource was precious. Water was recycled endlessly, and power rationed to the milliwatt. They watched Mongol warships prowl Mars through telescope arrays, knowing their own survival grew more precarious each day. Then something appeared at the edge of their senses. Vessels of impossible age and origin, emerging from the dark. The Holy Roman Empire hungered for war. Rome burned with celestial fury, its legions now led by warrior priests, its ships powered by Jupiter's storms. Admiral Tacitus commanded 10,000 vessels from his flagship Byzantium, their weapons primed for holy slaughter. As Mongol tribes tore each other apart in civil war on Mars, the moment for conquest had come. Tacitus gave the order. The Roman fleet would thread through the asteroid belt, hidden until the final approach. Rome would render Mars unto God. A ghost from Earth's past emerged from deep space. Tang ambassadors watched from their asteroid stronghold as an ancient vessel approached their outer dock. With depleted defenses, they had only one choice, and transmitted a welcome signal. What stepped through the airlock sent ripples of shock through the observation deck. A being both primitive and advanced, a shadow of humanity's origins. A Neanderthal. For the first time in 40,000 years, humans and Neanderthals stood face to face. Within the Tang Dynasty's observatory, eager ambassadors gathered around their otherworldly visitor as he began to speak. Long ago, the two species lived in harmony, reveling in Earth's primordial bounty. But humans evolved into something terrifying. A voracious species, driven by endless hunger, spreading across continents, devouring everything in their path. As humans became Earth's apex predators, their violence was no longer driven by hunger, but by some primal wicked mutation, a deep propensity to consume, to subjugate, to conquer. With extinction imminent, Earth's remaining Neanderthals fled through the great arc into hyperspace, building thriving civilizations around distant suns. All the while they watched Earth from afar, hoping their homeland might change. Instead, they witnessed its total annihilation. Standing before the Tang Dynasty's ambassadors, the Neanderthal emissary offered salvation with one condition: to transcend their primal hunger for violence and join their Neanderthal kin in the greater cosmos. From the windows of the observatory, Roman warships emerged from the darkness. From his command bridge, Admiral Tacitus watched the stars blur past him. Mars awaited, but something else caught his eye. Movement among the asteroids, ornate structures carved into the rocks, bearing ancient Tang Dynasty markings. His order came without hesitation. 10,000 warships opened fire as one. Solar ballistas cleaved through ancient rock. Fusion torpedoes burst in devastating chains. Cities crumbled into nothingness, and the asteroids themselves ignited, molten rock and metal erupting in all directions. When the carnage settled, only fragments remained. Obstacle eliminated, the Roman fleet resumed its march on Mars. The Red Planet sprawled beneath the Roman fleet. Below, Mongol clans tore themselves apart in civil war, unaware of what approached. On the surface, Khan Subutai saw the warships too late. First came the solar ballistas, turning fortress cities into vapor. Then fusion spears rained down, shattering defensive shields. Mongol vessels, barely breaking through the atmosphere, disintegrated against Roman firepower. Their once mighty technology now seemed primitive, like arrows against artillery. In hours, Mars burned again. Where Mongol strongholds had stood, only glass craters remained. Tacitus surveyed the ruins of the old Roman capital. Soon they would rebuild, as it was written in the time of Augustus. So it would be until the death of the final star. All roads lead to Rome, even those paved with stardust. Rome's victory echoed across the abyss. But while Tacitus celebrated among Mars' ruins, older empires had long since touched the stars. At the universe's edge, crystal cities gleamed beneath alien suns, golden arcs phased between dimensions, and vessels gifted by cosmic beings sailed through distant nebulae. Ships of living metal sang to unknown stars, as ancient civilizations watched Rome's petty war for a single solar system, knowing their time of isolation drew to an end. The known solar system was but a single port in an endless sea, and in the vast depths beyond, humanity's oldest children were stirring. The Mayans reached the stars in 847 BC, their ships ascending from the temples of the Yucatan into murky realms beyond. Blessed by Kukulkan and guided by celestial prophecy, they surged past the boundaries of Earth's meager solar system into the infinite dark. There they established outposts on distant worlds, raising stepped pyramids beneath alien suns, and constructing temples that mapped the cosmos itself. Their seers charted paths through space that other civilizations wouldn't discover for millennia, transforming unknown stars into a network of sacred sites. While humanity fought over worlds circling a single star, the Mayans had already mapped 1,000 suns. As armies clashed across India's kingdoms in 520 BC, the Gupta Empire looked to Brahma's infinite cosmos for salvation. Their mathematicians had unlocked the secrets of zero and infinity, enabling them to fold the fabric of space-time itself. Great golden arcs carried millions to the stars of Alpha Centauri, where they raised cities of marble and brass on alien worlds. Temple spires rose on a dozen planets, while their instruments kept watch on distant Earth, knowing that others would soon too pierce the heavens. While Rome celebrated its petty conquests, the children of Brahma prepared for the coming storm. Known they weren't alone in the universe, they simply lacked the means to prove it until the visitors arrived. From the endless dark came enormous beetles, who chose the sands of ancient Egypt as their sanctuary. These cosmic architects raised the pyramids as celestial beacons, bestowed their vessels and knowledge upon the pharaohs, then vanished into the depths of space. The Egyptians followed their teachers beyond the known universe, leaving behind only whispered legends of their departure. Now they watch from the cosmic depths as ancient empires surge toward war, knowing their peaceful exile must soon end. In 146 BC, as Roman legions marched on Carthage, Boeotarch Hasdrubal readied his city for exodus. Within the Carthaginian port, engineers had discovered fragments of Egyptian stellar technologies, ancient propulsion mechanisms forgotten by time. They forged vessels of brilliant alloys that could pierce the boundaries of space. The night before Rome's final assault, 300 ships carried the people of Carthage into the heavens, leaving their burning city behind. They drift now beyond known stars, calculating the hour of their return. In 146 BC, 200 Persian ships tore through the fabric of space-time. When space steadied again, twin suns painted their fleet in amber light. Below, a desert world beckoned, familiar yet alien. Here, the bones of fallen titans breached sand dunes like the ribs of dead gods. Crystalline obelisks dotted the landscape, their runes depicting tales of empire and exodus. Empty cities stretched to the horizon, their streets thick with centuries of dust. In the shadows of vast ruins, they found messages carved in languages older than Earth itself. This world hadn't been abandoned. It had been harvested. The Tang dynasty braced for annihilation. It was in these final moments of peril that their Neanderthal saviors offered them an escape. The Neanderthal world bore witness to humanity's lost future. Mountain observatories cast shadows over forests that had never known the axe, while herds of mammoth and auroch grazed the valleys below. Vast libraries sprawled beneath enduring forests, their halls echoing with 40 millennia of peaceful contemplation. Yet in the Neanderthals' endless study of reality, they had reached a devastating conclusion. To exist was to suffer, to think was to know loss. To live was to experience an endless cascade of agonies, each awareness a prison of flesh and thought, each consciousness condemned to experience the same wounds across infinite iterations. The universe was not a cradle of wonder, but an engine of eternal anguish that ground all beings to dust, only to birth them again into new suffering. The Neanderthals believed they had found an answer, one that required the Tang's mastery of engineering to achieve. Together they could end existence itself, not through destruction, but transcendence, the final dissolution of the cosmic cycle. Having watched Earth burn, the Tang were quick to embrace this mission of universal liberation. Their work would take time, but the Neanderthals had come prepared, They had already identified which civilizations might advance quickly enough to threaten their calculations. These would be eliminated first. The Great Mercy would begin with extinction. Beneath twin suns, the Persian fleet sat anchored among the ruins of a dead world, where an ancient civilization had vanished without trace. No signs of war, no evidence of exodus. Persian archaeologists were still tracing worn hieroglyphs when electromagnetic interference flooded their instruments. Above them, massive obsidian shapes cut through the atmosphere, perfect geometric forms against darkening skies. In their final moments, as shadows claimed the horizon, they sent one last distress signal out towards the stars. The harvesters had returned. Beneath twin suns, the Mayan capital of Ixchel Prime housed 10 million souls, its astronomical networks monitoring half the known galaxy. In the orbital rings above, warrior priests trained for conflicts they hoped would never come. The Astronomical Council gathered in the observatory temple of Itzamna. Their deep space probes had detected planets vanishing along the Perseus arm, and a Persian distress signal had just confirmed their worst fears. The priests of Kukulkan had maintained their isolation for centuries, avoiding the wars that raged across space. But this threat was different. Breaking their silence, they transmitted warnings to 3 surviving powers: the quantum theorists of Gupta, the Egyptian Beetle Empire, and the vengeful fleets of Carthage. The pattern of extinction was spreading. Hannibal VIII stood at the observation deck of his command spire in Neo-Carthage. The marble cities of their home world had grown vast and powerful, their technologies now rivaling those of the Roman Empire. 10,000 warships waited in orbit around Dido Prime, ready to fulfill their ancestors' oath of vengeance. When an urgent signal arrived from distant Maya astronomers, a warning of a cosmic threat that demanded immediate counsel, Hannibal made his choice. A diplomatic vessel would make the journey to their coordinates, but the rest of the Carthaginian fleet would begin its long-planned advance toward Mars, where Roman power lay exposed. Even with their newest quantum drives, the journey would take years, but Carthage had waited centuries for this moment. Hannibal, heirs to India's golden age, the Gupta Empire now sprawled across 15 worlds, with 8 billion souls orbiting around a solitary dwarf star. The capital city of Soma Prime vibrated with the resonance of temple bells and the electromagnetic hum of sacred observatories, where astral equations merged with Vedic wisdom to chart their cosmic path. Interplanetary currents carried merchants between worlds, while physicists debated in weightless chambers and scholars merged quantum discoveries with Sanskrit verses. Street processions mirrored the rhythm of the stars, a testament to traditions that had long survived the great exodus from Earth. When the Mayan signal shattered centuries of silence, Emperor Chandragupta understood its dire meaning. Only a grave existential threat would force the Mayas out of their isolation. The Yagna fires were lit, and the Gupta emissary fleet was deployed at once. Beyond their borders, another world vanished into eternal darkness. At the galaxy's frayed edges, the Egyptian Beetle Empire carved a world of opposing devotions. Their civilizations split between sun-drenched temples and subterranean sanctuaries. Surface structures captured the star's first and final rays, while deeper tunnels burrowed toward the planet's core, tracing sacred geometries through living rock. Humans and beetles moved together through this vertical world, surface dwellers and deep-core architects united by a singular purpose. They were survivors, forged by witnessing the collapse of countless civilizations. They understood that preservation was not a choice, but the only path to continued existence. When the Mayan distress signal reached them, the Joint Council convened within the resonant chamber. The eldest beetle took to the floor and shared an age-old fable. Long ago, a scorpion wished to cross a river, but could not swim across, and so it asked a nearby frog to help it make the passage. The frog refused, fearing the scorpion's sting, but the scorpion argued that stinging the frog would doom them both. And so, persuaded by this logic, the frog agreed to carry the scorpion across the river on its back. As they began to cross the river, the scorpion then stung the frog. As they both began to sink, the frog asked why it had done such a foolish thing. The scorpion had no answer beyond the unchangeable truth of its nature. It simply couldn't help itself. The waters closed over them both, and neither creature reached the distant shore. Humanity, the beetle warned, is a scorpion. To answer the Mayan call would invite destruction, as surely as the scorpion's sting. The council concluded that they would ignore the Mayan call. Their isolation had shielded them for millennia, and it would do so again. Far above, at the galaxy's frayed edges, the Egyptian worlds were vanishing, devoured by an unseen hunger sweeping through star systems. As entire civilizations began to disappear, the Mayan, Carthaginian, and Gupta empires raced to mount a unified response. Meanwhile, a Carthaginian battle fleet surged toward Mars, blind to the greater threat consuming their universe. As these events unfolded, Rome's deep space sensors detected what the Maya had already discovered: entire star systems vanishing without trace. Emperor Valentinian IX, understood the gravity of this threat. Over decades, his engineers had built vast networks of spatial distortion arrays around every planet to shield their empire from detection. At his command, these machines activated, cloaking the entire solar system in artificial darkness, rendering every trace of Roman civilization invisible to the cosmos. But in the infinite depths beyond, something ancient and patient continued to hunt. Civilizations with brutal efficiency. Tang engineers swarmed through the Egyptian beetle ruins, harvesting quantum drives and stellar cores from the gutted ruins of the fallen empire. Yet uncertainty plagued their command center. Not only had Rome vanished from the grid, but other unknown powers still lurked in the cosmic depths, their strength and numbers a dangerous liability. The hunt would need to continue, and so the Neanderthals drafted a plan. From their distant outpost on Helios 7, they would broadcast a desperate plea for help, knowing that any civilization answering the call would inadvertently reveal their existence and location in the universe. Those who came to offer aid would instead mark themselves for extinction. In a distant galaxy, their beacon began to pulse. The High Priest of Kukulkan raised his hand, and the orbital gates above opened to welcome those who had answered the Maya's call. In vast chambers beneath Ixchel Prime, the lords of Carthage and Gupta shared with the Mayas grim revelations of civilizations erased from existence. Past conflicts seemed petty now, in the shadow of total annihilation. Then came the distress beacon from Helios 7. With no time for debate, they dispatched their greatest warships to investigate the signal. 3 battle fleets thundered across the horizon, unknowingly sealing their doom. Through the azure mists of Helios 7, the Maya, Gupta, and Carthaginian envoys approached a lone bunker, the source of the desperate distress signal. A Tang hologram materialized before the envoy and greeted them. The hologram asked what other civilizations might join them. They were all that's left, they said, and only Rome lay hidden. Then the hologram revealed its grand plan, the systematic erasure of all existence. Horrified by the hologram's revelation, the ambassadors transmitted emergency signals through space-time, each burst inadvertently pinpointing their homeworld's location. The trap had been sprung, and their signals were now tracked. In its final act, the hologram triggered the bunker's detonation sequence, and a massive atomic explosion obliterated the envoy in an instant. The Neanderthal fleet obliterated 5,000 years of Carthaginian civilization in an instant. First came the solar lances, fiery missiles that tore into Carthage's sun, igniting catastrophic solar flares that set the heavens ablaze. Planetary shields melted under waves of solar fire. Then the artillery ships arrived, tearing asteroids from orbit and hurling them at Neo-Carthage with unstoppable force. Their purple cities, quantum foundries, and dreams of expansion across the stars were all atomized in a single brutal bombardment. As their sensors confirmed the Empire's complete destruction, the Neanderthal ships turned as one. Ahead lay the bastions of the Maya and Gupta, next in line for annihilation. 10,000 Carthaginian warships surged toward Rome. But as Hannibal VIII stood on his command deck, dire news arrived. Their home world, along with those of the Maya and Gupta, had been utterly obliterated. Their fleet remained all that was left of the Tri-Alliance. With the destruction came a final fleeting transmission from Helios 7. The Neanderthal clan behind these attacks was constructing a device to end existence itself. Carthaginian scanners pinpointed the source of destruction, massive gravitational distortions emanating from a distant system. In that moment, Hannibal's choice became clear. Rome would have to wait. With a single command, 10,000 ships altered course to confront the architects of oblivion. 10,000. The Roman armada lay in wait above Mars, primed to ambush the Carthaginian fleet. Aboard the Imperial Scorpion flagship, Emperor Valentinian IX studied the radar display. He watched as Hannibal's fleet abruptly altered course, bound towards a vast energy signature at the edge of known space. 5,000 Roman warships emerged from stealth, fusion drives blazing as they launched in pursuit. Ancient enemies now surged together into the cosmic dark, toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of all remaining life. Universal annihilation lay within reach. Deep within their fortress world, the Neanderthal-Tang Alliance monitored their cosmic nullifier, a machine designed to unravel the very foundations of reality. Their final calculations were nearly complete, and to their knowledge, no advanced civilizations remained to oppose them. Yet their sensors, fixed upon their grand machine, missed 2 vast armadas cutting through deep space. The vengeful fleet of Carthage surged toward them, pursued by the full might of Rome, as the countdown to oblivion began. Universal death arrived without warning in the cold black of space. 10,000 Carthaginian warships burst from hyperspace like vengeful ghosts, their opening salvo atomizing the Neanderthal sentries before the enemy could raise its shields. Plasma torpedoes carved molten wounds through armored hulls, while antimatter beams reduced Neanderthal vessels to dust until the last enemy ships split apart in a flower of burning wreckage. Amidst the orbital carnage, Carthaginian scanners pierced the planet's mantle, revealing a vast labyrinth of tunnels pulsing with dubious power signatures. As Hannibal's dropships punched through the atmosphere toward the planet's mysterious depths, his elite guards steeled themselves for the horrors that waited in the abyss below. At that precise moment, a shockwave rippled through space. Rome had revealed its hand, and the full weight of the Imperial Armada materialized from stealth above the Carthaginian fleet. Centuries of bitter enmity erupted into apocalyptic fury as Rome and Carthage collided at the universe's edge. The Roman Armada emerged from stealth, unleashing waves of hellfire upon Hannibal's exposed flank. Space itself was caught ablaze as quantum weapons shattered shields and ignited reactor cores, scattering smoldering debris in every direction. Humanity's oldest enemies, locked in their last catastrophic embrace, would finally settle their blood debt among the stars. From the command bridge of the Scorpion flagship, Emperor Valentinian IX and Admiral Tacitus watched Rome's perfect ambush descend into savage entropy. Tactics crumbled in seconds. Doctrine meant nothing. Aerial strategy dissolved into primal fury. Warships rammed warships at point-blank range, while crews battled with plasma axes through ruptured hulls. The last great empires of humanity had abandoned precision for raw devastation. Yet amid the carnage, Tacitus's eyes locked onto Hannibal's golden dropships piercing the atmosphere below. Destiny would be settled on the ground. While Rome and Carthage painted the stars in shades of red, Tacitus led his shock troops through the storm of battle toward the planet's surface. All the while, in those ancient tunnels below, sealed for millennia beneath layers of rock and silence, the doomsday clock ticked forward. Mere seconds remained until midnight. The cosmic nullifier roared to life, blaring the song of oblivion. The moment of universal collapse drew near. As warning sirens screamed through the facility, Tang engineers worked furiously, every keystroke bringing the device closer to activation. Through security feeds, Neanderthal guards watched as the enemy carved deeper into their tunnels. Carthaginian forces barreled through security checkpoints, flattening defenses, advancing ever closer to the inner sanctum. The Neanderthal commander rallied his warriors. They would fall today, but if they held the enemy back long enough, the universe would fall with them. With a solemn nod to his Tang allies, the commander stepped through the airlocks. His warriors followed, vanishing into the darkness. The tunnels erupted in chaos. Plasma bolts ripped through the smoke. Detonations shook the passageways, and bodies slammed against shattered stone. Neanderthal fury met Carthaginian steel, neither side yielding as the battle raged through the depths. Still, the Carthaginians pressed forward, stepping over the fallen, tearing through resistance, driving toward the core. Then behind them, Roman war cries rose in the darkness. The cosmic nullifier. Hannibal's forces breached the Neanderthal's inner sanctum. The final blast doors buckled and fell, revealing a chamber bathed in the pulsing glow of the cosmic nullifier. The last Tang skirmishers fell in a brief, desperate firefight. Only the engineers remained at their consoles, as if the battle around them meant nothing. Hannibal and his men stood transfixed by the machine before them, an artifact of impossible science. Every instinct screamed that it must be stopped. The ensuing explosion came without warning. Smoke and fire swallowed the air. When it cleared, Hannibal stood alone. His men lay lifeless around him. Hannibal turned as Tacitus and his legionnaires advanced towards him, weapons raised. Hannibal's hand reached out, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Brother," he called to his oldest enemy, "this is the end, not just of our war, but of all wars. 1,000 years of vengeance, of empires burning across the stars, of children carrying their father's hatred into the void. None of it mattered now. Their nature had led them here, but it need not sting them. In this last moment, they could choose to be more than their ancestors' sons. Everything hung in the balance. This was their last chance to stop the machine." Tacitus drove his dagger into Hannibal's chest. Hannibal staggered, then crumpled to the floor. Beneath the cosmic nullifier, a Tang engineer met his compatriot's eyes. He grasped the activation switch and pulled it down. The machine awakened. Time froze. The universe went dark. And then there was light. Hannibal's force.
Deep in the halls of purgatory, I found myself face to face with Apex, the god of all gods. I began to tell Apex about Earth's demon problem. The god's cosmic brow furrowed.
"Which one is Earth again?"
I shrugged.
"Oh yes, the watery rock. The one with slugs and gunpowder, right? Yes, not our most popular creation."
Yes, well, I'm afraid it's been overrun by demons.
And your gods? Surely they're handling this right?
No, they're long gone. Missing for millennia, actually.
Abusing the unlimited vacation policy, it seems. Very well, I'll recall them at once.
The primordial one began some kind of primordial dance, then fixed his gaze back on me.
Bredvog, you are to escort the gods back to, what was it called?
Earth.
Very well. Ensure they do their duty this time.
I nodded, wondering how one herds gods. Suddenly a blinding blue light engulfed me. Perhaps death was indeed just a comma in life's grand sentence.
Startling revelations from the Himalayas. Colossal avian creatures have begun materializing around ancient Nepalese monasteries. Attempts at communication prove futile, as the bird-like apparitions respond only with deafening, otherworldly screeches. Scientists and Sherpas alike stand baffled before these mystifying beasts.
If you give a troll a cookie, he'll ask for a goblet of nectar to wash it down. Once quenched, he'll demand a feast of moonlit mushrooms, which leads to requesting a banquet under the stars. The feast will remind him of ancient troll songs, so he'll want a lute to play. Playing will tire him, and he'll ask for a bed of moss, and if you give a troll a bed, he'll surely ask for another cookie,